get started. So welcome to Casper College's School of Social and Behavioral Science annual seminar, where today we will ask the important questions: are you thriving or are you surviving? My name is Pete Van Houten, the Dean of the school, and I always enjoy this day because it is a chance for our students to learn the important role of the social sciences in learning how to thrive. This point will be expanded even further this year when you look at our slate of speakers, including communication instructor Terry Rogers, education instructor Dr. Carrie Malin, agriculture instructor Heath Horniker, and former psychology instructor and current interim Casper College president, Dr. Brandon Kosine. So all you psychology majors, if you want to be president, that's how you do it. This is a very impressive lineup today. We are also welcoming back our keynote speaker, Corey Cicchetti, an award-winning professor of business ethics and legal studies at the University of Denver. Corey will talk about thriving in the world by forging a solid character, strong personal relationships, and a sense of contentment. A side note, Corey's academic department was named one of the top 10 for producing students with high ethical standards, which is one of the reasons why we continue to ask him back. After lunch, hopefully you can join us there as well, we will host our 2024 Constitution Day event with a living room conversation focused on the question, what are American values and ideals? I was thinking about this question earlier this summer when I was reading a book that highlighted the importance of learning how to create connections with one another despite our differences. Case in point, author Francis Berry observed that in 1958, roughly 25% of American parents preferred their children to marry someone from a specific political party. Today, this figure has more than doubled. I find it interesting that in a time where there's been a notable increase in the acceptance of interfaith, interracial, and same-sex marriages across America, and yet acceptance of inter-party marriages has decreased significantly. For us to survive and thrive as a nation, we must do better at listening to others who have different viewpoints about our country. Living room conversations, something we have hosted the last 3 years, will do just that. Now, hopefully you'll enjoy the day. If you do, I would like you to thank our speakers. I'd also like to thank our organizing committee, made up of co-chairs Heather Lloyd and Bree Weigel, as well as faculty members John Ordaway, Daniel Gallegos, Doug Hall, Amanda Nelson, Nathan Blank, Jenny Johnson, and academic assistant Autumn Baker. To get us started, however, I'd like to bring forward communication instructor Doug Hall, who is also the co-director of Casper College's forensics program. But again, welcome. Doug will serve as our MC.
Thank you, Dr. Van Houten. All right, before we begin, a little housekeeping. If you are here for a class, you might see the QR code up here on the big board. If you could take a quick 2-question survey, it'll help us identify which class you were here for, and we can let your professors know that you attended and that you enjoyed it. Everyone should feel like they can take it, though, not just if you're here for a class, but that's how you do that. All right. In welcoming you to the Social and Behavioral Sciences Seminar, I'd like to have you please join me before we begin in acknowledging that we are gathered on the ancestral lands of the Arapaho, Crow, and Cheyenne peoples. We honor their deep connection to this land and their enduring cultural traditions. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge their continued stewardship of this land. Thank you. Our first speaker is a dedicated educator with 16 years of experience at Casper College, is renowned for his excellence in teaching and his commitment to serving vulnerable populations in our community. As a recipient of the Rosenthal Award for Teaching Excellence, his passion for empowering students is evident. In his presentation, The Thriving Life, Which Voice Do We Listen To?, Terry will delve into the internal and external factors that can hinder personal growth and fulfillment. By exploring the concepts of voices and their influence on our lives, he will provide valuable insights into overcoming distractions and interruptions to achieve a thriving life. Please welcome Terry Rogers.
All right, so I just have to tell you off the top that I tend to be a 40-minute speaker, and I've been shoeboxed into a 20-minute kind of time frame. So in the end of the presentation, there's the microphone. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to need 7 volunteers. So be thinking about that right now so we don't have to spend a whole lot of time when I say, hey, I need volunteers. Just 7 of you rush up here and help me out, would you? Thanks. All right. When I think about the thriving life, and I've been pondering this question because of some research that I bumped into, been pondering it for about 2 years, I wanted to come up with a measure for you of what a thriving life might look like. And of course, there are a lot of metrics that we might use to measure a thriving life. One of the metrics that this culture is oriented toward is money. So I started looking at a thriving life based on some sort of financial measurement. And I ended up kicking around in the NBA. In the NBA, according to multiple sources, for the 24-25 season, the average NBA salary is going to be, anybody want to take a guess? Huh? $2 million. $1 million. 3.5. I'll give you a clue. Last season, the average salary was $9.75 million. Yeah. Predicted for the 24-25 season, the average salary is going to be $12 million. I think I could thrive on that. Yeah? So when I started to think about that salary, I tried to make it make sense in my head. $12 million to pay basketball. So if you cut it in half, $6 million to play offense and $6 million to play defense, right? And so $6 million to score points and $6 million to keep other people from doing that same thing. So it doesn't surprise me then that the average field goal percentage, so people shooting from the field in regular play, the average field goal percentage is 47%, according to the Basketball References webpage. And that makes sense, right? I'm trying to score, other people are trying to stop me. There's a lot of moving parts happening there, and of course, I'm not going to be 100% successful. But this leads me to consider this. There is a space in that game where we remove all of those variables. We take the defense out of the game. We take the other coach's strategy out of the game. We take the referees out of the game. For the most part, we take the fans out of the game. Okay, now think about, and hold on to that image for just a minute. We take all of those variables away. And let's think about the average NBA player. In my head, the average NBA player, and this could be just a story I tell myself, but I think it works. Like, from the time they're able to walk, the average NBA player has had a basketball in their hand, right? Constantly with that basketball. Elementary school, they're in Little League Little League basketball play, right? They're in club play, they're in school play, they're in high school play, they're in college play, and finally they get to the NBA, where they're getting paid $12 million to shoot basketballs at a basket, okay? It seems to me that when we talk about this space where we removed all the variables called the free throw, if you think about the time that the average NBA player has spent in training, think about the time that the average NBA player has to practice shooting the free throw. Like, it's got to be a lot, right? And the variables don't change. They will be the same no matter what gymnasium or arena I'm in. The free throw line, always the same distance from the basket. Basket, always the same height. The arc of the shot, always the same, right? It's always the same. And I have infinite amount of time to practice that shot, right? So it would seem that if I have spent that kind of commitment and dedication in my life to being a participant in this game, and I'm making $12 million, when I clear the deck of all of the variables that are distracting me, I should be somewhere around 100% on a free throw. Like, that in my head just makes sense. But here's the deal. If you look at last season's NBA statistics, what you will find is that the league average for free throws was 74%. Which means these NBA All-Stars getting paid $12 million a year are missing 25% of the time. And I find that just on its own, I find that like a phenomenal kind of like, what? But it leads me to ask this question. Why does that happen? Right? And so that led me to some folks. Turn the thing on. Help. I bumped into this research a while ago, and I've kind of been living with it for a couple of years now. These two gentlemen write in the arena of like human performance, right? And so Tim Galloway writes his book, The Inner Game of Tennis. Barry Green reads it, follows alongside, and says, hey, I really like this research. I'd like to steal it and apply it to human performance in terms of performing music, right? And so he writes The Inner Game of Music. Essentially, what both of them come to realize is that, let me ask you this question. Anybody in the room do music performance? Yeah, or anybody in the room do theater performance? Anybody in the room shoot free throws? Yeah, okay. So, factoid about myself. My wife is a classical piano player, and so to be able to have conversation with her, I decided that I would learn how to play the classical guitar. I'm terrible at it, just so you know. But here's the thing. When I'm alone in my practice space, I can kind of muddle my way through pretty well, and I feel like I've accomplished something, but as soon as I bring one other person to the environment, it all falls apart. Just like the guys who shoot free throws should be making them all the time. And so Galloway and Barry Green started to look at this, and they start to talk about the fact that all of us have the potential, right? The NBA All-Star guy has the potential to shoot 100% from the free throw line. So why is it that when we've removed all the variables, the potential exists, why does it not happen? And my argument would be this, and I steal this directly from these two gentlemen, is that all of us bring to this moment where we're alone in our human performance condition, where there's this chatterbox who starts going cha 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 cha, and starts talking at us, starts distracting us, starts sharing these toxic little messages that provide or open the door to self-doubt, that start to distract from our ability to accomplish at the potential that we have. They formalized this into performance equals our potential minus distraction. So if you think about the formula for just a minute, like let's get rid of the D, your performance is going to equal your potential, right? Then we factor in for distraction. And our potential drops, which means that our performance is going to drop. Everybody with me on that? Does that make sense? Okay? So I extrapolated from there, and I borrowed heavily from their formula, and I moved to here, where I talk about the idea that the thriving life equals our potential life minus distractions. And so my argument is all of us have the potential for a thriving life. And if it's true that we have the potential for a thriving life and we live reportedly in the best of times, why is it that also depression is skyrocketing? Suicide is skyrocketing. The mental health crisis is skyrocketing. That does not seem to evidence to me what we might call the thriving life. right? And so we start to talk about and weigh out then this surviving life versus a thriving life. And I would say that the surviving life, of course, sure, is a life. Absolutely. But is it a thriving life? I would make the argument that the distraction that we experience in our potential life comes from the very same thing that I talk about when I think about the NBA free throw player. We have that toxic little voice, the chatterbox, that starts to go. And if any of you are fans of the movie Inside Out, where the little emotions are all going crazy inside the person's head, right? I think about this chatterbox that has all this toxic and negative chatter going on, holding hostage the other voice that lives in our head, that's kind of our inner cheerleader, that says that we can do this, right? And so I want to explore, by way of application this morning, how we might get to a way, at least for this part of the seminar, a way of seeing how the surviving life and the thriving life can either happen or are compromised by this inner talk. And then I think probably through the day, you're going to get some other kinds of keys to hyping up the positive talk while mitigating the negative talk, right? So let's take a look at that. So now is the time. If I could get 7 volunteers to just run right up here, it would be amazing. And here's what's awesome. Right now, all of you are having, if I go jump up there, what if he makes a fool of me? What if I look bad? What if I, Okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yellow sweatshirt, you can be the last one. All right, everybody come up here and just line up across here for me if you would. Okay. I'm going to borrow you and bring you over here. You're going to be this guy facing the bucket. Right? Okay, so I'm going to give you this ball. Oh boy. Okay. I'm going to give you this. Awesome. Thank you all so much for helping. All right? I appreciate it. All right. So, continuing kind of along the line with the basketball illustration, this gentleman has the potential to put that ball in that bucket, right? The potential exists at whatever level that potential currently is, correct? You with me on that? Okay. Now, as soon as I handed him the ball, he said, "Oh man." And the inner voices started firing. Okay? Now, I want you to think about your lives. The things that you do. The things that you could do. And what are the voices in your head that say to you, "Oh man"? What does that messaging sound like? I'll start. I'm not good enough. Anybody else want to jump in? Help me out. I can't. Good, yeah. I can't. Even though I know the potential exists. What else? How about I'm a fraud? Man, I don't know if you guys know this, but the speaker after me has a doctorate degree. He's going to be really good. He's the president of the college. I have a little master's university from It Doesn't Matter College. How do I get up here and present? Like, what do I have to offer? Oh, there's one. I have nothing to offer. What else?
Everyone will laugh at me.
Oh, yeah, laugh at me. Of course they will. Too hard. freeze. Okay. Now, here's what I think is interesting. If he has the potential to put this ball in that bucket, and when I hand him the ball, he goes, oh man, these are all the stories that start running. Just like you, right? We don't want to admit it, but yes, you know that's true, right? Just like you. So, here's what starts to happen. Move you right here, right? It's right there. Have you come here? Yeah, and have you there? And have you here? All right, come this way just a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, there. Oh, yeah. Now, all of a sudden, we have built a wall of shame and guilt. We have built a wall of toxic messaging that gets so cumbersome. This is the part you're going to hate. Give your hand back. Turn your hand around backwards. It gets so cumbersome that we become blind to our potential. And all of a sudden, all of that messaging feels true because we have created a situation where we are blind to what we can do. And because of that, this mythology that we've spun up, this false narrative, becomes so powerful in our life that we live as though it were true. And I take my potential to accomplish a thriving life, and I choose to just sit back and eke it out. To survive. And yeah, I get it. A surviving life is a life. But I will tell you, I spend a lot of my time in prison facilities working with individuals who are just marking time. And let me tell you that their biggest desire is to get outside of their cage and start living a thriving life. The problem that I see for a lot of us is we don't know that we're living in a cage, so we don't aspire to get out of it because of this messaging that has made us blind. But here's the thing that you have to understand and appreciate. Even though he's blind, and even all of this messaging out here in front of him, this wall of doubt and shame is there, we have not affected or impacted his potential to accomplish at all. The potential still exists. So in intrapersonal communication, what we learn about is taking all of this messaging that has made this wall of shame and guilt and reframing it. So this becomes, let's flip it over. Good enough. Let's have you stand this way. And we're going to take I can't, and we'll turn it to I can. And let's have you stand here. And I have something to offer. And let's have you stand here. And what you have? Oh, fraud. I'm for real, man. I'm legit. I can do this. People will laugh at me. Good, I was entertaining. Not afraid, right? That's what we're really saying. I'm not afraid of your laughter. Too hard? Break it down. So you sitting right here. I'm tired. I'm going to power through in spite of, right? Freeze. And here I'll say, I'm going to activate. And so I reframe all of the messaging, and here's the deal. Often, when we're blinded by our own toxic messaging, we're the last ones to see the truth. But instead of facing a wall of guilt and shame, we actually are standing at the front end of a gauntlet of glory. And all we have to do is take advantage of it. So, two voices. One that tells you you can't, one that tells you you can. My challenge to you, my question to you, which one are you going to entertain? Thank you.
Think about.
Yes. Thank you all. I appreciate it so much. Doug, I think you.
All right. Yes, we are rebooting the computer. We're having some issues with that. Sorry about that. A couple of things real quick. Actually, while he's here, does anyone have any questions for our first speaker, Terry Rogers?
That's the beauty of doing it complete.
Yeah, you nailed it. You answered all possible questions. Okay. A couple of housekeeping items. One, we do want to remind you to please not bring food or drinks into the auditorium or into the concert hall. We're lucky to have such a fine space, and we want to make sure that we're taking care of it. So please don't bring food and beverages into the space. Additionally, the QR code that I mentioned at the start is also on posters around campus and on the exterior doors. So if you weren't able to snap that before they took it away, you can find those out in the hall. And of course, they will put it back up here as well. All right, we're waiting for the thumbs up. Hey, we're all right, we're good to go. They got it rebooted? Okay, we're ready to introduce our next speaker. And our next speaker is a renowned expert in higher education leadership and a passionate advocate for mental well-being. As the interim president at Casper College, Dr. Kosine has demonstrated his dedication to fostering a supportive and inclusive campus community. In his upcoming presentation, Taking the High Road, the Neuroscience of Thriving, Dr. Kosine will delve into the science behind stress management and resilience. Drawing from his expertise in psychology and leadership, he will share practical strategies to navigate challenges effectively and achieve personal growth. Please welcome Casper College Interim President Dr. Brandon Kosine.
All right, is this on? Yep. All right, so before I get started, I just want to say, so have you ever been sitting in the audience and the person before you is saying, but the next presenter is really good, and I've only got this degree from this little school, and he's got this degree here, and you're sitting there thinking, wow, what he's got is so much better than what I have, and I have to get up in front of everybody next. Who's been there before? All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. I think that this is a fairly timely topic, given everything that's going on in the world. I don't want to go through all of that because it's just kind of depressing, but we do have a lot of big things coming up. And as Terry said, we have so many things in our society that are just stressing us out, right? So I would say one of the biggest things that we have is technology, because we're constantly distracted. We've got a lot of unrest in the world. We've got a horribly contentious political election coming up, and just the day-to-day of everyday life. And so my hope is, with this presentation, I can give you just a little nugget of something to make your life a little bit better so that you can thrive if you feel like you're surviving. And real quick, too, I just want to say, as I was, like Terry's topic, they both merged very much. And I thought, wow, the neuroscience of thriving, that sounds really great. It sounded good at the time when I thought of the topic and the name of it and everything, but I always have a tendency to get what I need when I need it. So right before coming here, I was up at the event center at the Boys and Girls Club annual breakfast where the governor's there, and they have an award recipient. They choose the Central Wyoming Boys and Girls Club Student of the Year and everything. And I'm just listening to these stories of kids who have these horrible lives, and they go to the Boys and Girls Club, and now here's this little 10th grader giving a speech that was spot on in front of about 400 people, and this kid is going to go be a forensic scientist at the University of Wyoming. And as I was thinking about starting this topic, I thought, thriving really is one of those things that it really assumes that one big thing is that we're out of survival mode and that some of our basic needs are being taken care of and all of that, and that's really hard for people to get out of. So as you're listening to my topic or the information that I'm presenting, I was thinking, I don't want people to feel bad if you're in survival mode or if you're having a hard time getting out of this. But then I listen to these kids, and I'm like, but they're getting out of it. So it kind of negated what I was going to say here. So anyway, I hope that you can grab a few nuggets from this. And I have never worn one of these, and they're really, I don't know how to work this thing. Anyway, I don't want you to feel bad about this, but I hope that I can give you a couple of nuggets to help you live a life of thriving. So I'm going to skip those. So how many of you do feel stressed on a regular basis? Yeah, everybody. And just take a moment to think about, what does that stress look like for you? Okay, what kind of symptoms do you have? What happens to your body? What happens to you when you get stressed? Just think about that for a second. Okay, so we'll come back to that in just a second. So really, there are a couple of different kinds of stress. So I wanted to give a little bit of some definitions about what stress is. Sometimes we experience eustress, which is basically where we feel like we can kind of accomplish everything and that we have what we need to be able to get through situations and everything. But there are some situations in life that are kind of stressful, but it's kind of a good stress, like if you're going to get married or if you just got a big job that you're going to be starting and everything. That's a really good kind of stress. It does affect our body in similar ways, but it's not quite as bad as distress, where you really don't feel like you have what it takes to be able to cope with everything. And that's when you start having some of those negative body reactions like these right here. So here are the different ways that you can experience stress. And as you think about how you experience stress, how many of you can see 2 or 3 of the different ways up here, or the different sensations that you have in your body from the stress that you experience? I know I do. And here are some of the long-term effects of stress, as you all know. And if we can't get out of this survival mode, this is what ends up happening to many of us as we go along. Like Terry was saying, we have problems with mental health, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. A huge one is diabetes and obesity. I don't know if folks realize the connection between chronic stress and diabetes and obesity and all that, but it's huge. So really, we're at one of the most unhealthy times in our nation, and a huge part of it is because we don't know how to manage our stress. All right, so here are 4 main reasons or causes of stress. So environmental. This can be, do you live in a safe place? As I'm thinking about the kids who were at the Boys and Girls Club, this is a huge part of it. These kids are coming from, and maybe some folks here are coming from less than ideal situations where you might be housing insecure, you might be food insecure. These kids they lived in rough neighborhoods and everything else. And so this can be a source of constant anxiety. Social. What if you don't have a lot of social connections? What if you come from a family that is not very connected, or a broken family? Many of these kids experience that. Physiological. Do you have all of your physiological needs met? Do you have any kind of chronic illness or other kinds of bodily things that are going on that don't contribute to health? And then the big one here is thoughts, and this is kind of what we'll focus the most on. If you think back to all of those cards that Terry had in his presentation, this is one of the biggest things. We get in our own way constantly with that negative chatter that's going on in our heads a lot of the time when we have things that we have to do or performance situations and things like that. I don't know where to point this thing. All right, so how many of you have heard of fight or flight? Okay, so we know fight or flight is that kind of innate physiological and biological process that keeps us safe, right? We see something in our environment or we experience something, our body says, this is dangerous, and you either need to fight it or you need to get out of here, right? So think about, I was just trying to think of examples of this. So you see a snake, and you really take a lot of time to process that. Like, is it a bull snake? Is it a garter snake? No, it's just a snake. And then you jump, and you scream, and you look around and make sure nobody saw you, even if you're by yourself, and then you get away from the snake, right? Well, a lot of times people, when you're surviving, this is where people are living constantly. And it's really hard to get out of this because it becomes a negative pattern and a way of responding to our environment with whatever the stressors are. And so when I was saying take the high road is basically a way of processing. So here's our brain, and I don't know if this thing has a pointer. I don't want to touch buttons because it'll turn off. But anyway, in the middle of the brain, we have a brain structure called the thalamus. And this is a brain structure where when your body and your brain is taking in information, it says, oh, this is vision, so I'm going to send that to the part of the brain that processes vision. This is auditory, so I'm going to send this to the part of the brain that processes auditory. And there's this little structure down there called the amygdala, if you can see that. So when we're in fight or flight and we're surviving, we take what's called the low road, where the thalamus says to the amygdala, this is dangerous, get out of here, and it completely bypasses the frontal part of our brain, which is where all of our processing and ability to make judgments and to make decisions and to assess an environment and all of that comes from. So the low road is, I take in this information, it goes right to the amygdala, I flee, or I fight, or I react harshly, and I react without thinking and all that because there's some threat in our environment. The high road of processing, and this is where thriving comes in, is where the thalamus takes in the information, and then we stop, and it actually makes it up here, and we say, okay, wait a minute, this isn't that dangerous, or I need to take a second and process through this, and then it might make its way to the amygdala, and we make some kind of response and all of that, and that's high road processing. So when we're talking about thriving and going from surviving to thriving, the science of this is, when you look at the model on the right, we have a stimulus, which is whatever in our environment, and then we have this, and then we have a response, and in between there, we have this space, and that is where we have the ability to make a choice. And I'm not talking snakes or really dangerous things and things like that. I'm talking about in our daily lives where we're just in stressful situations or we're in a bad, relationship or some other negative situation. We have the ability to choose, and we can either be reactive or we can be proactive, okay? And being proactive and stopping is where we can start breaking our cycles of negative behaviors and negative responding. All right, so we're talking about surviving and thriving. What is thriving? So if you look at these things, I want you to take a second and just think about, what does a thriving life look like for you? So is it learning new things? It's a growth mindset. It's flourishing. It's engaging in those things that you really enjoy. It's taking the time to do those things. And it's just a general sense of well-being. And it's also this sense of whatever my situation is, I can overcome it. And what is the difference between the physiology of fight or flight and thriving? If you think about it, if you're decreasing all of that adrenaline and all of that cortisol and everything else, those are the things that cause us to be depressed and anxious and all of that. And so when you're depressed, your neurochemicals go down, like serotonin, norepinephrine, things like that. And so this actually increases the serotonin in your brain. It actually works with your dopamine system and your reward system. When you do something good, you get that little dopamine high from that in a positive way. And you just, again, have an overall general sense of well-being. All right, so how do we do this? The first thing is self-awareness. So as I'm talking about all of these things, I want you to think about, how does this apply to me? And this isn't a comprehensive roadmap or anything like that. These are just some tips on how can I make one thing better in my life. So the first thing, just like anything, it's admitting you have a problem or admitting that you want to change something, and then having some wherewithal and some self-awareness about, am I just surviving? Am I just getting through my day? Or how would I like my day to look different? And how might I get there? What's one thing I could change? So I love the idea of growth mindset. When you look at everybody in your life and you say, boy, they're just really good at that, or boy, that just seems to come so naturally, I could never be that. A growth mindset is completely different. A growth mindset says that I can do these things with practice and repetition, and that things aren't just innate with everyone, that they actually have to practice it and do it, and I can practice it and get better too, instead of, I could never do that because it's just not natural to me. So shifting from that kind of deficit model over to that positive model is what a growth mindset is. Can you change it for me? I don't know what's going on. I always say you need to have like 5 minutes of stand-up comedy for stuff when stuff like this happens. And be prepared for that, because it always does. There we go. So set some clear goals. What does thriving look like to you? And again, as I'm talking, I want you to think of one thing, because I am going to have you pair at the end and talk about this, and think about what is one thing different in your life that you could do that would make it better. It's still not working, sorry. And then 4, practice gratitude. So this is truly, at least in my life, one of the most important things that I have incorporated into my kind of daily routine is practicing gratitude. So what does this mean? It means that even though we might be in a crummy situation and everything else, there's usually something that is positive. Like, I even just woke up this morning, or I get to go to college, or I have a good friend, or something like that. Because the thing with gratitude is, if you can identify one thing, it usually leads to another. And it's a mentality of abundance rather than a mentality of deficit. And you'll just be surprised, like I said again, listening to the stories of the Boys and Girls Club, not really knowing what I was going to say here, and being able to incorporate that into here. I was just like, wow, I can't believe I got what I got when I needed it again. And so it also just helps you pay attention to those things that are positive, because there's all these things when we're in a survival mindset. If you think about how much goes on and past you in your daily life when you're in that survival mindset that you don't even realize that might be good, and this slows us down to say these are good things. All right, and then finally, managing your energy. We have a kind of a finite amount of energy each day that we need to learn to expend on things that actually matter. And we also need to take care of ourselves so that we're always kind of in an optimal time or an optimal space for energy. All right, we can just, I think somebody's in the back controlling this. Just go through all of them. This is the point in the presentation too where it's like, gosh, all this animation seemed like a good idea when I was putting this together, and now it's like, wow, it's super cumbersome, so don't do this. Let me be an example to you. All right, so here's all the benefits of thriving. I don't need to go through all those because I've already gone through them, but clearly thriving in your life is going to lead to a more optimal life for you than just merely surviving. All right. So I did want to go, so here are some of the tips that I have. And this first one, as I was thinking about this one is probably one of the hardest for all of us. I want you to think about a situation or a person or some other thing where you feel like you might have some unhealthy boundaries, or this person or this thing is keeping you from getting what you want. Or the inability to say no. I want to have everybody or people raise their hands because I know that we all do this, but how much better would your life be if you said no to maybe one thing a day of all the things that are bombarding you? Because I know that when I say yes to everything, that's when I get overwhelmed. That's when I start taking on things for other people, and that's when I start to go from thriving to surviving because it's just overwhelming. And I also want to acknowledge how hard this is because sometimes the things that we have to say no to is a person, or it's a loved one, or it's a family member, or it's some other negative life situation that's just really hard to get out of that cycle. And we can probably all think of an example of where we fall into this. So I think this is one of the biggest things to do to start living a life of thriving. The other big one is surround yourself with people that you want to be like. Again, that's also setting boundaries because you're getting away from those people who aren't good for you, and you're starting to spend more time with those people and situations that are good for you, and that's not always easy because sometimes that means you have to sever relationships. And again, that is not easy. Continuous learning. This is a hard one because we have to carve out space for this. And a lot of times we feel like we don't have time for this. But, Casper College's tagline is education for a lifetime. This is one of our values here at the college, is continuous learning. Because when you're continuously learning, you're continuously getting better, and you just know more things, and it opens up more situations for you to live a life of thriving. Foster a culture of feedback and growth. This one takes a lot because this requires removal of your ego, putting it off to the side, and saying that the feedback that I get from other people doesn't always necessarily I don't need to perceive it, right? So here's stimulus and response. I can respond in a poor way. There's that spot in the middle where it's your choice to interpret that and respond. If you just say that this person wants to help me get better, maybe they're not great at delivering the message, but they're trying to help me get better and look at the message and not the person and maybe how it was delivered and make adjustments from that. Because you're going to be, and we are, criticized all the time for things that we do, we say, and everything else. And so if you see that as a way of improvement, reframe that, it will be better for you. And then this one is, I've known this for a really long time. I have a book on my shelf that says Start With Why and all this, but this theme keeps coming back up in my life, is you really need to figure out what is your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? If you're a college student and you're struggling and you just don't know if you can move forward, what is your why for being here? What is it on the other end of that you're wanting, that college is that conduit to get you there? Or just in life, for everyone else, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? Because if you have like Friedrich Nietzsche says, if you have your why, you can endure almost any how, and it will bring the emotion down in that situation. And it refocuses you on what's important. All right, so here, I'm just gonna let you read through these, except maybe the last one. These are some practical tools that I want you to look at and maybe say, what are some adjustments that I can make here? But I think one of the biggest things is that we have that gets in our way is holding on to resentments or holding on to negativity. So I want you to sit here and think of what is one thing that you really need to let go. Like, here's an example. I have a cousin. I'm an only child. He's an only child. He can be kind of a turd. He's only a couple of years younger than me and everything, and I just don't like the way that he responds to life. And then he wonders why things don't turn out for him like he wants them to and everything. And I get really angry about it because to me it's a value thing and it's a moral thing and all of this. And every day when I hear something new or whenever it is, I have to think, how does this affect me? And why am I letting it get in my way of moving forward and all that? That's his life. I live my life the way that I live it, and I think it's okay. He can live it his way, and he'll just need to figure this out on his own. So I need to let that go. But it's not easy, because why do we hang on to things? What's that?
We care.
Because we care, okay? What are some other reasons? Why do we hold on to things? We want them to change, right. But whose responsibility is it to change? Theirs, yeah. Any other reasons? Barter syndrome? That's a whole lecture in and of itself. You know, I think another thing is that in our culture, I think that we get really addicted to anger and being outraged and all this. That explains a lot of what's going on in social media. We have a hard time letting that go because when we're angry and we're outraged, what does that give us? Energy, right? And so when I let go of this, what happens to my energy? Or what do I think might happen to my energy? It goes down. Then I have to replace it with more positive things. And that's hard. So it's just easier to be angry and not let go of things. But truly, this is one of the things that will get in your way the most, is not letting go. All right, next slide, please. Whoa, can we go back one? There we go. So now, this is the time. So I'll entertain any questions right now, but I actually want you to think about this for a minute and pair with somebody next to you and just talk about what's one thing in your life that you'd like to change. What is a pattern or a behavior that you would like to let go of or change? What are a couple thoughts or behaviors that you would move you towards your goal that you would need to do to get towards that? And then maybe how might you sustain this over the next, let's just start small, over the next week. And if a week is too long, maybe the next couple of days, because I know how this goes and everything. So take a couple of minutes, chat with the person next to you, and then I'll ask a few folks to share. All right, so we're going to try this. As many of you saw, so here's another good example. As many of you saw, a lot of folks got up and left and everything. And I was telling Doug, I'm like, I can either think like, man, I really know how to clear a room. Or I can reframe that and say, it's 10 minutes till 10 and they're going to class. We're going to say they're going to class. All right, so maybe one or two people, would you mind sharing what you came up with in this? Yes?
I would say setting some clear boundaries and communicating with people who are most likely to be unwilling to compromise with those set boundaries that will try to help benefit the healthy ease between the relationship with the person.
Great. So she said setting some clear boundaries with those folks who are unwilling to help, basically help you move forward and live life in a more positive way. Right. How about one more? Yes?
We all agreed that we wanted to change our sleep schedule,
Mm-hmm.
because that's something that's really holding us back as students, just lack of energy all around because we're staying up till midnight and waking up at 7.
Yeah, changing sleep patterns. It's amazing how much better we are the next day when we have a good night's sleep versus when you wake up in the middle of the night and it's like it's midnight. Now it's 1 o'clock. If I fall asleep now, I'll get 2 more hours of sleep, and all of that. So yes, changing your sleeping patterns is one of those self-care things that you can do that leads to a thriving life. Maybe one more, and then I'll answer any questions you have, and then we'll move to our next presenter.
Procrastinating when it comes to doing work and stuff.
Yes, procrastinating when it comes to do work. How many people here procrastinate? Yep. A way of reframing that, and it's one thing that I've actually had to learn for myself, is that sometimes with some things, I tend to procrastinate. There are those things where we just don't want to do the task because it's hard and you just don't want to get to it. I want to reframe some of the things that folks who procrastinate do, though. For me, when I have to put things together, or even something like this, I've been thinking about this for months, and it's been gelling, and I've been doing research and everything else, but I'm one of those people who I have to start out really rough, but then it kind of has to get more towards the last minute to get me focused, to be able to get this done and everything. I always try to allow enough time for that. But for some reason, I'm just not one of those people who can write a paper a week ahead of time and have it be good. It has to be all the research and then get it done in the last couple of days. Because for some folks, like me, I'll just go on and on and on and on as I am now and everything. And it really just helps to focus that down. So I don't know if that reframe will help. I hope it does. But procrastination always isn't a bad thing. All right, so I will entertain any questions that you might have right now, and if not, I will give you a restroom break and get ready for your next speaker. Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Take a restroom break real quick, and then come back and be back by 10 for Dr. Malin. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? Good, good. Try not to get blown away.
Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you had enough time to take a short break there. Again, a couple of housekeeping things real quick. Again, just another reminder to please help us take care of this great space by not bringing food and beverages into the space. Also, if you would please consider taking our survey for the Surviving and Thriving seminar today, especially if you are a student from a class that wants to let your instructor know that you were here. That's a good way to do it. So please remember to take that survey. All right, as soon as everybody gets settled here, we'll introduce our next speaker. Looks like we're mostly filtering in. Good.
In Mr. G's class, if you take a selfie. Selfie. In Mr. G's class. Proof of life.
There you go. All right, our next speaker is an esteemed early childhood and elementary education instructor here at Casper College. With 24 years of teaching experience at Casper College, she has been instrumental in advancing early childhood education, notably by developing one of the first fully online degree programs in Wyoming. Under her leadership, the early childhood program at Casper College became the first in the state to receive National Association for the Education of Young Children and Higher Education accreditation. Dr. Malin today will present about remembering important childhood lessons. Please help me welcome Dr. Carrie Malin.
Good morning. I'm seeing if my PowerPoint's, oh, wicked, there it is. I'm not going to walk around with a microphone in my ear. I'm just going to stand quietly here and visit with you. It is so nice to see you. So, yeah, it's my 24th year at Casper College. I've actually been teaching for 33 years. And one of the best things about teaching for 33 years is for those entire 33 years, I've had the opportunity to be with children. And today I want you to reflect about the beauty of childhood and the beauty of lessons that we can learn from people who are much, much younger and much, much shorter than us. Let me see if I get this to click. So I want to start off with a story. I started my teaching career in Lincoln, Nebraska, and for some reason the insects are very different in Lincoln, Nebraska. I grew up here in town, and probably the only thing I remember seeing growing up were a few spiders here and there, maybe a roly-poly. Well, it was my first year teaching kindergarten in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I had a student named Jay Stewart, precious, big-eyed, fabulous little boy. And the day was starting, and the kindergartners come rushing in as they always do. And there's lots of chaos, and some people are crying, and some people are putting backpacks up. And I'm helping people get started, and Jay says, "Mrs. Malum, I brought a praying mantis to school." And I said, "Great, Jay, fabulous, good, great." So I'm helping people, I'm tying shoes, and he goes, "No, I brought it. See?" And he holds in my face a praying mantis. And in my imagination, in my memory, it was 4 inches long, kind of a weird grayish green color with big eyes, and he holds it up in my face. I had made the assumption that he had it in a jar or some kind of container, but he's holding the praying mantis. So immediately, everybody who's under 2 feet tall stops and looks at the praying mantis. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, Jay, let's find something to do with your praying mantis." And as he's showing me the praying mantis, it whips its terrible claw around and pinches Jay's finger. So now Jay is screaming. The praying mantis is flying. The children are watching, and I'm thinking, what do I do? What do I do? So I ran, and I grabbed a cup, and I thought maybe I could scoop it off its finger and land it on the counter. And as I'm doing that, even as the praying mantis is squishing his finger, Jay is screaming, "Don't hurt it, Mrs. Malum! Don't hurt it, Mrs. Malum!" So I scooped it off, we plopped it, we got it in a jar. Now, my teaching plans for that day were to teach about the letter B and talk about the billy goat's gruff. What do you think we spent the day talking about? Praying mantises. The children's interest is what drove our day. And it was a reminder to me as I was preparing for this that sometimes we have to just stop and go with what is actually relevant in the moment. So in preparation for that, I was thinking about a poster and a book. And this came out in, I can't believe how long ago, it came out in 1986. And this is by an author named Robert Fulham. And he wrote a book, and I hope you can probably see it, but it says, "All I really need to know I learned in kindergarten." So he talked about the idea that if we really think back to some of those beginning lessons we had when we were just younger, that they're very applicable today. So I'm going to read you a few of the things that he said. He said, all I really needed to know I learned in kindergarten. Share everything. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say sorry when you hurt somebody. Wash your hands before you eat. Most importantly, flush. Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. Live a balanced life. Learn some, think some, draw and paint, sing and dance and play, and work every day some. Take a nap every afternoon. When you go out into the world, look for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. So as I thought about the things he had to say, 3 attributes of childhood came to mind: altruism, curiosity, and simple joys. When we talk about altruism, we're really talking about the idea of sharing and giving of ourselves to others. And I found a research from Dr. Paul Bloom. He's from the Yale Department of Psychology, and he and his wife run what they call the Baby Lab, and they do research on the innate traits children are born with and how that relates to us as adults. So I'd like to show you a little video clip where he talks about infants and altruism.
So much of the action in psychology has been a running debate over which view is right. And this concerns morality, both moral judgments, right and wrong, but also moral feelings, including compassion. Many people would argue that in that regard, the baby starts off with nothing. The idea is children start off immoral, monsters. Or if not monsters, at least they know not for good and evil. This is not the view which I think is supported by the data. I think there's now more and more data in support of a different view of compassion. One way to make a baby cry is to expose it to the cries of other babies. There's sort of a contagiousness to crying. It's not just crying. We also know that if a baby sees another human in silent pain, it will distress the baby. It seems part of our very nature to suffer at the suffering of others. We know that young babies, as they become capable of moving voluntarily, will share. They will share food, for instance, with their siblings and with kids that they're around. They will soothe. If they see somebody else in pain, even the youngest of toddlers will try to reach out and pat the person, maybe hand over a toy. There's some lovely studies finding that slightly older children are able to help others. When they see somebody who's unable to fulfill a goal, they'll seek out to come to their aid. So one elegant demonstration of this comes from a recent set of experiments where they take a toddler, put him or her in a situation where an adult is in some sort of mild distress, and see if the toddler will voluntarily help, even without any prompting. And they find that toddlers typically do. There seems to be some sort of impulse in us that's altruistic, that's kind, that's compassionate.
All right. So if we think about that, we become hardwired to be kind to each other, we become hardwired to share. And one of the ways that we can thrive is by thinking, how can we share as adults? I was thinking about the idea of driving to Denver and sharing the road, letting someone pass you, or maybe passing someone to give them space. Another opportunity I thought about is maybe sharing a ride, giving someone a ride to school. Sharing our time is something that we can do. And what we find is when we are altruistic and we share, we reap the benefits of feeling better about ourselves, which increases our absolute thriving. We can think about sharing kindness, holding a door for someone, giving someone a compliment, and then we can think about sharing our knowledge, share the things we know with others. Another attribute that we see with children is their ability to click. Yay, there we go. Another attribute that we see from children that would be fabulous for us to take into our own thriving lives is the idea of curiosity. Children, the whole world is new to them. They've never experienced before in their entire lives, and they explore the world with an open-mindedness and excitement. So I'd like to show you a video I found of a little girl experiencing a lizard for the first time.
Is it crawling? So gentle. Oh. On his tail. Oh, good girl. Good. What's he looking at? You give him a little pat. No, pat. We don't, no, we don't kiss the lizard. We pat him with one finger. Mommy, pat him. Oh, hi. You want to hold him? Okay, put your hand down. There he is. Oh, that's so nice. Okay. Oh, hi, Lizzie. There you go. Back home.
We don't kiss lizards. We might accidentally eat the lizard. So this made me think about how many opportunities might we have for curiosity and what that does for your day. I put up a really gross picture of something I probably would never eat. I don't know what that is, you guys. What do you think? Octopus plus cucumbers? I don't know. How many of you would eat that? There's probably somebody here who would eat that. Yeah. Yeah. Not me. But I did think one of the things that helps us thrive is adding some nuance to our day, something that's new and something that's different. Something as simple as taking a different route home. I know we've all experienced the phenomenon of getting from point A to point B and not remembering at all the drive. We just go, wow, that's a good thing I didn't run into someone because I just got from there to there. So taking a different route home is a way to help reignite your childish inside. Something else that you can do is, again, like this, trying some new food. If you've never tried sushi, give sushi a try. If you've never tried a vegetarian dish, which you probably have, give it a try. Another thought I had is listening to some music that's different. I always play music in my class before class starts, and I'm not a big country music fan. And one of my students said, we're going to listen to country music. So she forced me to do something new. Something else that would be fabulous is maybe brushing your teeth with the opposite hand. Have any of you tried that? Just something new, just like children experiencing the novelty and the curiosity in life. All of this leads to the reason we need to be thoughtful and the reason we need to think about childhood and the way children deal with life, because stress, as Dr. Kosine mentioned, is very, very prominent. I found a study in 2023. Inside Higher Ed did what they call the Student Voice Survey, and they surveyed 3,000 2- and 4-year college students at 158 institutions about health and wellness. They found that 6 out of 10 respondents had experienced acute stress. This is dramatic physiological and psychological reaction to a specific event. But 56% of students, meanwhile, experienced what they called chronic stress. This is consistent sense of feeling pressured and overwhelmed for a long period of time. And I would imagine there might be several of you that feel that way. They then listed in rank some of the things in college that cause stress. And maybe give me a thumbs up if this is something that perhaps stresses you. Exams, okay. Pressure to do well, balancing school and other obligations, essays or papers, homework, yeah, pressure to decide on a career, all right, and then group projects. Yeah, group projects, bless America. I I also thought this was interesting. It said community college students are more likely than four-year college students to cite balancing schoolwork and other obligations as a stressor. So the stress that we're feeling is absolutely backed up by people in other community colleges around the nation. So again, thinking about the things that children tell us and help with stress, one of them is the idea of finding the simple joys in life. So I put a picture of a little person jumping in a mud puddle. I haven't jumped in a mud puddle in a long time, probably because my shoes are fabulous and I wouldn't want to do that to them. But the idea of not passing a puddle of water without jumping in and getting yourself wet is something a child wants to do. It's a simple joy. If you watch a toddler eat a banana, very rarely does a banana go from point A to point B. There's a lot of squishing going on. There's a lot of textural feeling going on. And I'm not saying you all have to squish your bananas, but I'm saying taking time in just the little things that happen in life and finding some simple joys. I put a washing machine here, which doesn't seem to fit very well, but I listened to a really fabulous TED Talk, and it was a man named Julian Treasure. And his TED Talk was actually about learning to listen and how we've lost our ability to listen in the world because we have headphones and we kind of keep a little sound bubble to ourselves. But he made the most amazing little analogy, and he's from UK, so he called it his tumble dryer. And he said that when his tumble dryer is playing in the back of the house, when he slows down for a moment to listen to it, it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And he realizes his drying clothes is a waltz in the back of his house. And it's that simple joy of slowing down and listening to that. So I'm going to try a scavenger hunt. I'm not going to make you talk to each other. I just want you to do this in your head. If it's easier to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. You can keep them open. And I'm going to list some things that are simple joys, and I want you to try to visualize something as I name them. All right? The first simple joy is something that makes you smile. Something that smells amazing. Something that makes your life easier. Something that's soft to touch. Something that reflects light in a beautiful way. Something that reminds you of someone you love. Something that you take for granted but you would miss if it were gone. Something that sounds peaceful. Something that makes you feel safe. Something that you love to eat or drink. Can you do one of those today? When we think about children, we think about the things that make life more joyful for little people, we can take those on and make them more joyful for ourselves. To wrap up, I want to read you the rest of everything you need to know you learned in kindergarten. Everything you need to know is in there somewhere. The golden rule, and love, and basic sanitization, and ecology, and politics, and equality, and sane living. Take any one of those items and extrapolate it into the sophisticated adult terms and apply it to your family life, or your work, or your government, or your world, and it holds true and clear and firm. Think of what a better world it would be if we all, the whole world, had cookies and milk at 3 o'clock every afternoon. And then laid down with our blankies for a nap. Or if all our governments had the basic policy to always put things back where they found them and to clean up their own mess. And it is still true, no matter how old you are, when you go out into the world, it is best to stick together and hold hands. Thank you for letting me talk with you today. I appreciate it.
Do we have any questions for Dr. Melo? Okay. Fair enough. All right, we're going to take another quick short break to let the room turn over for our next speaker before we introduce him. So we'll take just a few minutes if you'd like to take another break, grab a drink of water. And as I said, please leave those food and beverages out in the lobby. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just lost now.
Welcome back. Just as another quick reminder, if you could, please take our survey. If you're from a class and you're new to the room, that survey will also let us inform your instructors that you came and enjoyed today's conversations. All right, our next speaker is a dedicated educator with 2 decades of experience in the agriculture department at Casper College. He is passionate about sharing his knowledge and expertise with students. With a strong background in agriculture and a commitment to his community, Heath has established himself as a respected educator and mentor. In his presentation, Connections Matter, How the People You Meet Now Will Help You Thrive in the Future, Heath will explore the importance of building relationships and fostering connections throughout life. He will discuss how these interactions can positively impact both professional and personal successes, while also highlighting the potential consequences of neglecting those connections. Please join me in welcoming Heath Forniker.
Well, thank you for having me, Doug. Thank you for that nice introduction. I just want to say that this facility is pretty amazing. It's quite a bit nicer than the room that I get to teach in every day, so it's an honor to be here, not only to be on this stage, but to talk with you, the students and the members of the community at Casper College. And so I am going to hopefully tell you some stories, some life experiences that I guess have allowed me to thrive during my time at Casper College. Not all of them were positive stories, and we're going to learn something from maybe a mistake or two that I made along the way that as students, hopefully you guys can understand my mistakes and allow yourself not to make the same ones. But if you want to understand a little bit about me and surviving and thriving, I guess I got to find the clicker. I can't help but start this conversation with what allows me to thrive, or one of those things. And this is my family. This is us about 4 years ago, I think in the midst of COVID, it would have been. And so, of course, this is my wife and my kids. And how many of you happen to be the youngest of your family? Okay, so you guys probably can relate to the youngest of our family over here on the right. She looks like she is absolutely thriving in this environment. Okay, and so that's that youngest kid thing. But this is a little bit about my family. If we fast forward here a slide, here's a more recent picture of us at a baseball game here just a few months ago. I also want you to look back down on that bottom right-hand corner, that youngest child thing once again. And if you're a baseball fan, you might recognize the shirt that she's wearing. It says, "You're killing me, Smalls." Okay, and I know we at least have a couple of baseball fans in here, but this is my crew. We live just outside of town here. We have a small acreage. We have some livestock. We have some short-legged dogs that I've actually had a chance to raise and sell to some people in this room. But I have 2 homesick today, so they're hopefully surviving, getting through their day. But in order to understand a little bit more about me, I need to tell you a little bit about my time at Casper College. And I was a student at Casper College when I met my wife. This is Jamie. In fact, I met Jamie the first day of livestock judging class in the classroom that I get to teach every day. So I taught my 9 o'clock class. I have a couple of students here. And I got to meet my wife for the very first time in that livestock judging class. And as a student at Casper College, I look different. Okay, and so we go back a little bit of history to understand where I've come and some of the stories. And so the picture on the left was taken right at the end of my senior year of high school. Picture on the right, actually, it was our livestock judging team final photo, and so I was a sophomore at that point, but I don't know how many of you were here with Dr. Kosine's presentation earlier, and he talked about some of those signs of distress. I noticed he was missing a very important indicator, and that was hair loss. And so if we look at these pictures from then, even when I was a senior in high school to when I was a sophomore, I started to have some of that hair loss, and obviously it's set in and it started to change colors. But it was at that time, as a student at Casper College, I didn't know at the time that I was really starting to develop a network of people. I started to make connections, or I started to meet people. I started to interact with people that I didn't know at the time that at some point later on in my career was going to benefit me. And one of those, and this is a story I want to tell you guys about that was a mistake I made that I hope that you guys don't make. And so I remember it was the spring of my freshman year. I think the spring of your freshman year is a tough time to be a college student, because that was maybe one of my semesters where I look back and like, boy, I didn't do things correctly. And I had a math class, and I had a really, really good math teacher. I was not a very good math student. I didn't come to class prepared. I did the bare minimum to get through. I wasn't engaged. I probably looked like one of those students that hated being in that math class. And so when I got done at the end of that semester, I got the grade I deserved. And that was one of the lowest grades that I got all the way through college. That teacher gave me what I deserved. Well, I didn't put my best foot forward in that class. I didn't make the best impression on that math teacher that I needed to. Little did I know that about 6 years after that math class, whoop, we got a little ahead of ourselves. About 6 years later after that math class, I got hired back at Casper College as a faculty member. And one of the first people I met was my math teacher. And I actually was dreading this. During that time, when I matured, I taught high school for 4 years. I'd grown up, of course, graduated college. I got married, began my family, and I started back at Casper College. And one of the people that worried me about meeting was my math teacher, because I knew I didn't give the right impression, or I didn't leave her at least with the best representation of myself. And so upon meeting that math teacher again, I said, hello, and she's like, hi, I saw your name, and I thought to myself, surely this can't be the same Heath Horniker. Oh, man. Okay. So my actions from 6 years prior were a reflection on me when I got hired here with that teacher. Now, fortunately, this teacher was forgiving. She was wise, is wise. And she quickly knew that that's not the real me, or at least the me that I was willing to put forward on that point forward. But it taught me a very valuable lesson. And that image, or that representation that we give of ourselves, stays with us. Now, a lot of these interactions that we have are positive. Okay, and so we'll come back to the math teacher here in a little bit. So we also have an opportunity to meet people and leave them with a good image or a good representation of ourselves. And I want you guys to know that it's a small world. When you live in Wyoming, of course, we're the least populated state, and then you make an even smaller group of people, like in my world, it's agriculture, or we could make it in Casper College. It's a very small world. A couple of examples of this. I was in a new faculty training just last week, and one of the new faculty sat down, and I thought to myself, oh man, she looks really familiar, and I can't remember or know why. So we sat there at the meeting, and one of the new faculty, we got done, and I got up and asked her, I said, did you grow up in Lander? She's, yes. And I said, did you grow up on Dabbich Street? She actually really looked at me weird and kind of worried at that point, and she's like, yes, why do you ask? And I said, I grew up on Dabbich Street 40 years ago. And I said, we were neighbors just 100 yards down the street from each other 40 years ago in Lander, Wyoming, and now we teach here at the same location, Casper College. It's a small world, so we're going to encounter people all the time. I work on Faculty Senate. Good to see you guys. Glad you're here. There's a QR code that you'll want to scan later and make sure you get credit for being here, okay? On Faculty Senate, I serve with one of the other members who I graduated high school with. We had lost touch for 25 years until we saw each other in a Faculty Senate meeting. and we made that connection. When I first got hired, or when I was a student here at Casper College, one of my instructors at the time, who was one instructor, and then I had the awesome privilege to teach with that person quite a ways through. His name was Tom Parker. His mom is a Horniker. And so we were very shirt-tail related. We didn't tell very many people that at the time. We were afraid of what nepotism rules would be. But it's a small world, and these are just some examples of how you're going to meet people right now, some of you young people that are 18, 19, 20 years old, and you're going to encounter them again at some point. So what's the image or what's the representation you've made of yourself that you're going to leave that person with, that you interact with later on? And so those connections that we make matter. Our reputation and that image that we leave people with matter. Okay? And the way that we can use this to start benefiting us and allow us to thrive is we need to start building that network. And so we're going to do just a quick little exercise here. And what I want you to do, this is the one where you need to get up out of your seat. I want you to seek out somebody in this room that you don't know. So you five got to break up and go find somebody that you don't know. I want you to learn as much about that person you can in the next 3 minutes. And I want you to ask yourself, how are you going to benefit that person? So, especially if you're a student, there's lots of likely candidates sitting over here along this side. I'd encourage you to go meet. But you guys have 3 minutes, ready, set, go. Go meet somebody new and find out how you're going to benefit that person. And I do know a lot of you, so I can tell if you're finding a person that you don't know. Okay, I see great stuff happening. Go ahead. You don't have to rush, but we are on limited time, so go ahead and tidy up your conversations. We'll head back to your seat. That was good, at least to get you up and out of your seat and keep you guys from falling asleep during my presentation. So, let's see here. I saw lots of activity going on, and who had the privilege, looks like maybe over here, of meeting Trustee Dolan? Board of Trustees Kathy Dolan. Who got to meet Kathy for the first time? Okay, perfect. So you got to meet Kathy Dolan. So I had a chance. Where'd Caden go? Caden. I met Caden. Caden is from Central Oregon, just south of Bend, Oregon. He is in his last term here at Casper College. Caden's going to go to the University of Wyoming. By the way, Caden prefers the weather in Central Oregon compared to Casper. Okay, it's a little blustery out today. Caden is going to finish general studies here, and then Caden's going to go on and work in construction management, and he sees himself in about 10 years working for OSHA. That's a brave career choice, but good for you. Okay, how many of you made an interaction with somebody that was intriguing? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that about somebody who was in the room. Who would like to share, or hopefully the person you met is okay with this, but who would like to share something that kind of astonished them about somebody they met in the audience right now? I saw a few hands go up. Where's another hand that wants to share with somebody they met? Yes, you want?
I think it was pretty cool. My guy Isaac is taking his college classes early while he's still in high school, and I'm the opposite. You know, I wish I would have done that. It's a good plan. I think it's a good motivator for me to see, you know.
Yeah. So Isaac is taking classes early. You're taking classes a little later than as a non-traditional student. So good. There's a connection there, almost the opposite of things. So good. You guys just started building your network. Okay? It's about making connections and meeting people and doing things. As I look across the crowd here, I don't want to single them out, but I can see a student of mine right now who I went to school with their parents at Casper College. I haven't gotten to the point yet where I've had a student of a student, meaning a student that I currently have that's a child of one of my former students. I'm close. I think we're close. I have a student in the audience who is the child of one of my best friends. Actually knew this person long before they were able to dress themselves or wear clothes or all of those things. And so that's an example of how small a world it is. How we make connections that someday we're going to come back and interact with them. So you just started your network. I left my clicker up here. Now what I want you guys to do is you just strengthened your network. You just talked about that. Now what I want you guys to do is to take 2 minutes. Write it on your hand. I took some notes earlier today in the 2 previous presentations. But I want you to reflect. Who are 3 people that are going to help you thrive in the future? It could be Caden that I just met. It could be whoever you just met in this room. It could be somebody not in this room. But I want you guys self-reflect here for a second. Who are 3 people that are going to help you thrive in the future? Okay? So this is self-work. Go ahead and do that. Type it in your notes app in the phone. Write it on the palm of your hand. Write it in your notebook. Who are 3 people that are going to help you thrive in the future? Well, you're a very good audience. You guys listen very well. We went right to work. It got real quiet there for a moment. Go ahead and finish up if you don't have your 3 people down, go ahead and finish those. I am going to ask you to share, somebody to share, but I don't want you to share a name in particular. But what I would like is if somebody would volunteer to describe the person who they wrote down or one of the people that they wrote down. So we had good interaction over here last time. Is there another volunteer who would like to describe to us the person or one of the people that they wrote down? right here in front. We got a mic coming to you. That way everybody can hear your response. So without sharing a name, can you tell us about one of the people you wrote down who you think is going to help you thrive in the future?
My boss.
Your boss. And why is it that you think that person's going to help you thrive?
Because she's a big part of the community, and she's very intelligent, and she's always got the right thing to say.
That's perfect. Do you work at Casper College?
I do.
Oh,
But
look at that.
This boss is outside of Casper College, though.
Okay. That's perfect. That's a great example. We have a great person of influence who is providing a positive input, positive influence for this person. I think that's a great example. Thank you very much. Okay. Anybody else? One more that wants to share. Mr. Roger, right up here behind you.
Sure. So I have a mentor. He's like this 80-year-old guy. And the reason I think that he can help me benefit is that he's been down the road that I want to go down. He's already taken the journey. He has a well-established network that he's plugging me into, both in terms of state and national kinds of things.
Absolutely. And as Terry mentioned that, it made me think of a person who I have very much valued over my time, not only as a student, but as a professional at Casper College. Almost identical description. Has been there, done that, somebody that has a sense of calm, so if I come to them and we're discussing something that's a challenge, they just smile and nod and shake their head because they've done that. They've been down that road before, and that mentorship is extremely valuable to me. Okay, that's perfect. Now I want to flip the script a little bit for you, and like my math teacher, I want you to. Can you click it to the next slide for me? Okay. I want you to start thinking about that person that maybe you're not making the best impression on. When I sat down with one of the faculty in the social and behavioral sciences school and talking about this last spring, they mentioned to me that their dad always said, when you're walking down that path of life, never burn a bridge because you don't know when you're going to have to turn around. So now what I want you to do is reflect again, who are 3 people that maybe you haven't made the best impression on or left them with the best representation of you that may prevent you from thriving in the future? This one's tougher because this one takes a little bit of self-recognition. We have to put that ego aside, kind of like Dr. Kosine talked about in his previous conversation. So reflect for a couple minutes. Who are 3 people you have not made the right impression on that might prevent you from thriving? All right, we're going to keep moving because this is going longer than I anticipated. So how many of you thought that one was a much harder list to write? Yeah, it was for me too. And I wrote a list. And there might even be people on my list that are in this room right now that maybe I haven't left the best impression with that could or could not help me thrive in the future. But ask yourself as you leave here today, what are you going to need to do to change that interaction, to change that relationship, so that person can turn into somebody that's going to help us thrive in the future? Okay, can we go one more slide? It's not clicking for me. There we go. I want to tell you a story. This is Dr. Michael Shannon. Dr. Shannon is a pediatrician. Pediatrician is one of those that helps babies. In fact, Dr. Shannon specialized in helping premature babies. Dr. Shannon lives in Southern California, and one of his cases that really was astonishing, in 1981, he had a very premature baby that was born, weighed only 3.2 pounds. By comparison, I was born a few years before that, and I weighed 10, so I started off healthy. But Dr. Shannon helped this 3.2 pound premature baby survive. And in 1981, a lot different technology and medical techniques than what we have now. And so this was really remarkable in 1981. So he helped that baby survive. And it came back in 2011 that Dr. Shannon is finding himself driving home on the freeway in Southern California. He gets in a car accident. His car catches fire. He's trapped inside the car. He can't get out of the car, and his legs begin to burn, and he actually ended up losing some toes due to this car accident. Lo and behold, the EMTs show up. They get him out of the car. Can you advance one more slide? And the EMT who saved him in 2011 was that 3.2-pound premature baby from 1981. We don't know how the people that we interact with could help us thrive in the future. We don't know. So how do we figure out how we're going to do that? And this ties a little bit back into Dr. Malin's discussion. One of the things she talked about the little kids, and we did not coordinate on our homework, by the way. But one of the things she mentioned was about little kids and their altruistic abilities, their natural ability to want to share. I believe that in our human nature, we want to naturally share and benefit other people. So the how to this, I gave you a hint of it earlier when I asked you to go around the room and find out how you can benefit 3 other people. Instead of looking to get something to gain from somebody else right now in the short term, what I encourage you to do, the take-home message, is to look around and find out how you can help somebody else. How can you benefit them? Might be a simple smile. It might be a simple, hello, how are you today? It may be more complicated. It may be taking on some tasks that help them lessen their burden. It might be doing a good job at your job so that someday you can reap the rewards. If you can advance one more. Because almost always, those good deeds or those benefits that we do someday are going to come back to us and they're going to benefit us. So back to my math teacher. She actually became one of my favorite colleagues to work with. Remember, this is the math teacher that I did not do the best job of being a student when I was in their class. I taught at Casper College. This faculty just retired full-time here. I guess it would be right at a year ago. And became one of my favorite faculty people to work with, but also became one of my favorite teachers to advise students into. So right at just a hair over a year ago, I had a student come to me and say, I need into this business calc class, but it's full. I said, no problem. Let's email the teacher and find out if they can get you in the class. She's an amazing teacher. You'll have a great experience. We got that student into class. The student had a great experience. And if you can advance one more slide for me, that's the student. And you might recognize that student. One more slide, please. In the top left of that family picture that we did at the baseball game here a few weeks ago. So that's Nolan. Nolan's sitting right here. He didn't know I was going to talk about him today. But that math teacher that I left a bad impression with 25 years later did me a solid and helped out one of my advisees, of course, one of my sons. So we don't know how our interactions with people are going to come back to get us or to help us thrive. So I appreciate it very much. I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed being at Casper College. Do I have time for questions, Doug? Are there any questions? You guys are going to let me off easy. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, thank you all very much. We're going to take a short break before we bring up our keynote speaker for the day.
I was on vacation. Maybe I was.
Okay, welcome back. If you could find your way to your seats, please. A quick reminder that the survey for our Surviving and Thriving seminar is one QR click away. If you want to scan that, you can take the survey, especially if you are here from a class and you want your instructor to know that you were here and enjoyed the seminar. Please fill that out. It's 2 questions. It's really easy, very fast. Won't take you any time at all. All right. If you could, go ahead and make your way to your seats so I can introduce for us today the keynote speaker for the Social and Behavioral Sciences Seminar. All right, our keynote speaker for this year is a renowned expert in business ethics and legal studies. As the Bill Daniels Professor at the University of Denver, he has garnered a reputation for his engaging teaching style and impactful insights. In his presentation, Corey will challenge audiences to reevaluate their priorities and focus on the truly important things in life. By comparing and contrasting fleeting worldly success with the enduring value of character, relationships, and contentment, Corey will inspire you to develop integrity, set priorities, gain a big picture perspective, and ultimately chase an authentic life. Please welcome our keynote speaker for this year, Corey Cicchetti.
That's awesome. Renowned. I didn't write that, but that's great. Can I have that? Yeah. This looks like my classroom, so there's some good students up front, and then there's in the back. I'm just going to tell a few stories today, and through my stories, I want you to think about your life and what it means to be a person of character. When the storms of life come, what makes you resilient? What makes you get back up? These are important questions, and I think what happens too often is we know that they're important questions, but we get so busy that we just get thinking about them. So we have an hour. Let's think about them. If you want to take notes, fine. If you want to sit back and listen, like, it doesn't matter. I have no slide. I have one slide to send you. So you take notes or listen. So through my stories, think about your life. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. Any other first-gen students here? I love coming up here for that. That's awesome. So when you're the first-gen student, your parents can't give you a lot of advice, right? And it was just my mom at home. And I remember I got my acceptance letter. I got into one college. I got into the University of Denver. I got rejected everywhere else. I got into one place, and that's only because they let everybody in. That was when it was 100% acceptance rate. So I had this letter, and I walked and I showed her so she could read it. And my mom reads that letter, and she goes, "Corey, I can't believe you got into college." I'm like, "Thanks, Mom. It's not very nice." She goes, "Go down there and don't screw it up. You're our only hope for the family." And I'm like, I have a little sister. What is going on here? But raise your hand in this room if you're the oldest. Who's the oldest? So yeah, and who cares about your little sister? Like, if you're the oldest, it's on you, right? My oldest daughter is the one that we dropped and learned how to change diapers. It's brutal. Who's the youngest in here? Charmed life, y'all. Charmed life. I'm just kidding, but my youngest daughter has had a charmed life because we figured it out by that point. Anyway, I go down to college. They put us in a room just like this. This room is stunning, awesome. And the whole first year class was in there. And the registrar comes walking in. That's the person who tells you whether or not you can graduate, right? And in his hand is 1,000 sheets of paper. And he starts handing them out to every single person. And he gets on the microphone and he goes, "You can't leave this room until you pick a major, fill this sheet out, and figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life." And I'm sitting there going, pick a major? I'm just happy to be here, right? So I stood back up, I tried to hand him this paper back and leave. I go, "I don't know, man, here you go." He goes, "No, I'm serious, you can't leave until you fill this out." I'm like, "I don't know what to put." He goes, "I don't care, just sit down and fill it out. Just write down whatever you liked in high school." Okay, y'all, what did you like in high school? You know what I liked in high school? Basketball and girls. Those weren't choices for majors. So I'm like, I'll just pick history. I like to read. Who cares? I just gotta get out of this room. And I'm about to circle history. And then this voice comes into my head. And we've all had this voice. And it says to me, "Corey, you can't choose history. You're supposed to go to college to be rich." Raise your hand if you've had that voice. And the rest of you are lying to me, right? So I'm like, you know what? How can I be rich? This is the worst possible way to pick a major. What's gonna make me rich? And I land on business. I'll just choose a business major. Didn't know anything about it. Okay, fast forward. Now I'm a junior. All my friends are taking the LSAT. That's the test for what? Law school, right? And like, voice comes back. "Corey, if you could just go to law school, you could be rich." Listen, there are way easier ways in life to be rich than to go to law school. That's hard, right? But I didn't know any of that. So I went to Duke for law school, and the only reason I chose that place is because I like basketball. I wanted to go to basketball games, and it's a beautiful campus, and basketball, it was fun, and I got my law degree. And I still didn't want to be a lawyer. They didn't convince me. But now I owe $150,000 in loans to pay for that education, right? So you got to go try to be a lawyer. What are you supposed to do? So I go interview at all these law firms in downtown Denver. And I'm sitting across from lawyers who work there. And this is the interview. And they look like they want to cry. In the interview, I'm sitting there, you can't hold it together for 20 minutes. What's it like every other day here? So I keep going to interviews. Same thing. I go to this last interview. I'm going to be there all day. It's like 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. It's an all-day interview. It's hard. And so I'm talking to this woman. She's a partner there. And she's really nice. And she looks at me and she goes, "You know what, Corey? I don't have any more questions for you. But we have 5 minutes left. and I can't send you down the hall early, I get in trouble if I do that. So do you have any questions for me? Okay, students, you know by now, hopefully, that that's a really critical time of an interview. When they ask you to ask questions, that's when you can shine. Because they're asking the same questions to you. This is your chance, so I should have some questions, right? I don't have any. But I have to say something because she's just staring at me. So I said the only thing that popped into my brain, which was, how much does it pay? Which is the one question you shouldn't ask in the interview, right? So she looks at me befuddled that someone would actually say that, and she goes, oh, I'll tell you, and it was a ton of money. It was like $120,000. This was 20 years ago, so it's probably like $200,000 now. If you bill a certain number of hours, you'll make a huge bonus. And I was just a poor kid from Nowhereville, Colorado. When I was your age, if I had $500 to my name, I felt like the richest person. Any of you wish you had $500 right now? Would be so, yeah, and so you're going to pay me $100,000? I looked at her and I said, that sounds amazing. I'll take it. I accept. Y'all realize what I just did? I accepted a job that wasn't offered to me. So she then goes, I didn't offer you a job, Corey. You just asked me how much you paid, and I told you. And then she looks at me and goes, what's wrong with you? She goes, you seem like a really nice guy, and I want you to get this job, but they're never going to hire you with you looking so nervous. And then she says to me, do you need to go to the bathroom? Okay. So that your interview's going bad if they ask if you need to go to the bathroom. But it occurred to me now that I have a 10-year-old at home and a 7-year-old at home. And this is a question I ask every hour on the hour when I'm in charge. Okay, y'all, we're going to Target. If you're a parent, you've said this 100 times. We're going to Target. The bathrooms at home are nicer than the bathrooms at Target. Who needs to go potty? Okay, I was 27 years old and asked if I needed to go potty. So what do you think I said to her? Yes, what are you going to do? Keep blowing? I'm like, yes, thank you very much. So I go down to the bathroom. She goes, I'll see you later. And by that, she meant, I will never see you again. Right? So I'm about to walk into this big bathroom, but there's a small door to get into this big bathroom. And there's a man standing there. And he's in a suit and tie. He's just standing there. And he's blocking the door. I can't get by him, right? He works there. But no one's saying anything, so it's super awkward. So finally, he points at my chest and he goes, you, I'm waiting here for you at the bathroom. Get in there. And I walk in there and he follows me like we're about to fight. So I go to the sink and wash my hands for no reason. I don't need to be in there. This guy walks up and puts his arm around me. Hey students, you ever had someone you don't know touch you in a bathroom? Give it time. This is college. Give it time. Right? So then he starts to whisper into my ear. And he's creepy. And there's no one in there. And there's no reason to whisper. And he goes, your name's Corey, right? And I looked at him and I started to whisper too. Yes. He goes, you went to Duke Law School. Well, so did I. My name is Scott. And we're alums. And we're supposed to stick together. He goes, so I came in here to talk to you. I'm going to save your career. I'm going to save your life. And he goes, listen very carefully to me. And he leans in and he whispers. And he goes, don't come work here. And I was like, what? What did he say? He goes, this place sucks, man. He goes, this is a terrible place to work. And these people who work here, these are horrible people. And he goes, it won't be long before they're going to hate you. I'm like, geez, I'm a nice person. What do you mean? He goes, you're going to hate them. They're going to hate you. And he goes, you're probably going to keep a suitcase behind your door. And it's not for when you travel for the law firm. It's for when you sleep here in this skyscraper. And every family vacation you ever planned is going to get canceled, like right at the last minute. And you're probably going to get a divorce or have an affair like everybody else. He goes, but Corey, they're going to pay you a lot of money, but it's a trick. Okay, so those are important words. We're just going to set those aside for a second. Then he goes, take my advice and run. Told me to run. Then he took his arm off me and literally ran out the door. He ran out the bathroom door and was gone. So I never saw him again the rest of the interview. Do you want to know why? You don't put Scott on the official interview team. That dude is miserable. He doesn't get to interview people. So he leaves. And I'm just staring at a mirror. And every one of you in this room realizes that's a huge red flag, right? But the thing is, you've been in the same situation as I have. It's just been a different room and a different mirror, hasn't it? And you've been facing a choice in your life. And something inside of you told you was wrong, or told you was unethical, or told you was bad for you, but you really wanted what you thought was on the other side of that dream, right? So I took all those red flags just like you do, and I justified them away. And I said things to myself like, well, you know, that's just Scott. Here's the thing, I don't even know him. And I'm making character judgments about him. Every company has a lone wolf, a bad employee like that. And I just happened to run into him in the bathroom. What are the odds? Well, let's do the math, okay, about the odds of that being random. If I was running a law firm and I found out that one of my employees was walking into bathrooms telling applicants that the place sucked, I would fire that person, wouldn't you? So the odds of that being random were 0, meaning what? That guy meant to be there, meaning what? He was telling the truth. And I ignored all that, and I took that job because of what I thought it could provide to me. And about 2 days into the job, I started to think, uh-oh, this guy was right. 6 months into the job, I'm sleeping there, I'm walking the halls at 3 in the morning on a Sunday. And that'll take years off of your life, to be honest with you. And I sat down in the hall at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, and I said to myself, my boss is still here. And her boss is still here. And there's an 80-year-old man in the corner making copies. And he doesn't need to be here. He's got 6 assistants who would do that for him. And I said, this chase will never end. It's never going to get better. Because my hope was, if I could just make partner, it'll get better, and blah, blah, blah. And it will never get better. And I need to quit. I said, oh my gosh, that guy from the bathroom was right. You ever had an epiphany moment with that sentence? Now let me just pause here really quick and say, my problem was not law school. Law school's awesome. Law school was the best academic decision I ever made. I would go 10 times out of 10 back to law school. My problem is I got greedy with my job. I want to dissuade no one in this room from grad school. I think it's super important. I think finishing your bachelor's degree is huge. I got greedy with my job. It had nothing to do with law school. Law school was so valuable for me. Anyway, 3 in the morning, I'm sitting in that hallway, and I said, I'm going to call my wife, because I had just gotten married, and I can't quit without at least telling her. I had to call someone I love, right? My wife is cool. If you got to meet her, she's super friendly and nice, and I thought she was going to be cool about this. So I called her up. I said, honey, I'm going to quit this job. I'm never home. Are you okay with that? And I thought she would be cool, because she is cool. That's why I married her. She goes, you're going to quit this job that all your friends would love to have at this really good law firm? She goes, I had no intention last month of marrying a quitter. I was like, damn. And if I knew you were going to say that, I would have called my mom. I said, call someone that loves you. It doesn't have to be her. But anyway, she was on the phone. She kept talking to me, and she goes, you can't quit. What else do you know how to do? You don't have any other skills. And I'm like, do you love me? This is brutal. And she goes, well, here's the thing. She goes, you're underqualified and overpaid. So if you could just suck it up, like she said, really interesting words, maybe it will get better. Can you give it 6 more months? Okay, note-taking time or deep thinking time. Ready? I have taught ethics for 20 years. This is my 20th year. I'll make a promise to you. Morale at any organization, whether it be a law firm or a bank or a sorority, is never going to get better unless the people at the top want it to. And if the people at the top don't want it to, it will never get better. And it was never going to get better at that law firm because the people at the top didn't want it to. They made an economic argument to us, which is we're paying you more money than you're worth, so just shut up and work. And I get it, as a matter of economics, I guess that makes sense. But when you think of life in terms of economics only, here's what you leave out. Ready? The dignity of the people that work for you becomes irrelevant. Their mental health, their physical health, their relationships, their marriages, their kids, their friendships, like it's irrelevant to an economic argument. And it was never going to get better at that law firm because they didn't want it to. But I didn't know that because I was young and naive and I wanted her to be happy, so you know what? I just stayed. I promised her 6 more months, so I stayed for 6 more months, and 6 more months arrived. Do you think it got better? If anything, it was worse. But I had fulfilled my commitment to her, so now I get to quit. You ever had a job where you pull into the parking lot and you don't even want to get out of your car? So that was me. But I'm going to get out of my car, I'm going to go to my office, I'm going to write up a letter of resignation. Well, I had never quit a job like that before. When I was your age, you're a lifeguard, you just don't come back, right? Guess I'll see you next summer, I'm not a lifeguard. You don't write a letter, you just don't come back, right? This was my first letter of resignation. I went to my office, I wrote it up, it was like 3 pages long. I put it in a little white envelope, not to mail it, just to walk it down the hall. And my hand is shaking. I'm like, all right, idiot, you're about to be poor again, are you sure? That's how bad it was. So I walk into this guy's office, his name is Mark. There's no time for small talk. We had to bill our time every 6 minutes. And he sees me, and he goes, hey, what's that in your hand? And I said, Mark, I'm going to quit. Here's why. I had a whole speech plan. I didn't get to say anything else to that guy. He jumps out of his chair. He gets right in my face, literally right in my face. He goes, shut up, Corey, you shut up. Nobody quits this law firm, and nobody ever leaves. Give me that. And he ripped the letter out of my hand, and he ripped it into pieces, and he threw it away into a trash can by my feet. And they never taught me in business school what to do when someone rips up your letter of resignation, throws it away. Like, what do you do? Hey, students, pretend I was your professor, okay? And you wrote a paper for me, and you tried hard on it for once. And I didn't even read it. And I looked right at you, and I ripped it up right in front of your face. That would send some of you to therapy. That's a different keynote for a different conference. But I got mad because I thought that was rude. And I looked at him and I said, Mark, every single person that works for you hates their life. And he goes, no, I know that. I just told you every single person here is miserable. And he goes, yeah, I know. I go, these people here, they're on their 5th marriage because of this job. And he looks at me and he goes, no, I know that too. Okay, students, go like this. Ready? By a show of fingers, students, go like this. How many marriages do you want? Just look and see. I don't know. I got a 1. I'm cool with 0. 2, it doesn't always work out. But like any kid with a 5 right now has a serious problem. So he goes, Corey, you're not listening to me. Everybody hates it here. I hate it here. Everybody wants to quit. I want to quit every day. What I said to you is nobody actually leaves. And he says, that's different. And he goes, there's 2 reasons why. 1, they don't have any money. They're totally broke. And I said, how could they be broke? These people make $1 million. I knew their salary. It wasn't a secret. And he says, it doesn't matter how much money I pay them. They always spend more than they make. That's so American, isn't it? Paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. Is your family like that? I mean, we're not going to talk about this today, but let me just say this to you, okay? If you could find a way to live within your means, you will retain the flexibility to quit a job you hate. You know, we don't talk to young people right about this. We go, hey kid, live within your means because one day you're going to want to retire. And you're like, thanks, I'm 20. Hey kid, you need to be fiscally responsible. Like, I think that's important and I hope you do too. But how about this? That doesn't matter. How about this? One of these days you're going to have a jerk boss. And I want you to be able to walk away. I do not want you to have to work under the thumb of someone like that because your credit card bills and your car payment, your rent is so high that you can't afford to leave. Those golden handcuffs are really strong. We're not going to talk about that, but it's really important that you hear that. It's the second thing he said to me that changed the entire trajectory of my life. And it's not what he said, but I think it's what he meant. So he looks at me and he goes, if they quit, what are they going to do, Corey? Quit being corporate lawyers and go wait tables at Chili's? And I like Chili's. Do you? Like, I don't know, when I was in college, that was date night. But I don't want to work there. There's got to be a middle ground. But think about it for a second. If you're a corporate lawyer at that level and you don't like it anymore, what do you do? Do any of you in this room want the part-time corporate lawyer to do your IPO? No thanks, I'll take the full-time person. My wife's a surgeon. If she doesn't like it anymore, what does she do? Do you want the part-time surgeon to take out your gallbladder? Probably not. Here was his point. You're either this or you're nothing. I want to be very careful, really. I want you to listen very carefully to me. If you define your life by your job like that, and you lose your job, you have nothing. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard someone say. But here's the metaphor I used to describe what he said. This is the powerful part. These people had climbed the ladder of success. They had gotten to the very top, and they were at the very top. And they looked down at this from this ladder they've been climbing their entire life, and they realized it was leaning against the wrong wall. Well, now what do you do? Seriously, what do you do? Because you've worked so hard to climb that high. What are you going to do? Are you really going to climb down? Are you going to pick your ladder up? Are you going to move it over here? You're going to start your life completely over? Do you know why you won't do that probably? Because that's humiliating. And it's discouraging, and it's depressing, and no one's going to do that. And you know what these lawyers did? They stayed at this miserable job forever because they were trapped at the top of a ladder. They thought they wanted to climb their whole life. That's crazy. I might be the only one that ever says this to you, so I'm going to say it as slowly as I can. All the world does is talk to you about ladders. Have you noticed that? Hey, climb as fast, as hard as you can. Have sleepless nights. Work 2 jobs. Go to school. Get straight A's. Blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't care about your ladder. I might be the only one. I care about your wall. And if y'all are going to work so hard and have all that stress that comes with it, it might as well mean something to you. And too few people think about the wall that their ladder leans against, and we just relentlessly climb to no end. It's exactly what I did. This is a wall day, okay? You leave here today and you think about your wall. And you don't have to know exactly what it is, but time to start thinking about it. Well, there's going to be plenty of mistakes that you make. So I left. I saw my letter in the trash. I saw that guy. When you quit a job like that, they don't give you 2 weeks. They send you your stuff in boxes. So I was not a lawyer anymore. And I felt like a total failure. I mean, I had put 7 years into that and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't know what to do. A couple months later, I get a random phone call from the University of Denver. Never met this guy who was calling me before. It was fate, if I've ever heard of fate. This guy goes, hey, Corey, I never met him. This is John from the ethics department at the University of Denver. Someone died down here last week. That's how he started the call. So what would you say? I'm like, hey, John, nice to meet you. That sounds terrible. I thought it was a student. I'm like, is this a fundraising call? He goes, it was a faculty member who died. He was 87 years old. Apparently, he had been there for 60 years. Are your professors old, y'all? That's how good of a job I have. Someone has to die for there to be an opening. It's like being on the Supreme Court. It's too soon? Too soon for that joke? Look, it's Constitution Week, y'all. Shut up. Okay. It's probably why I'm here. Constitution Week, funding. Okay. So I said, he goes, do you want to be a teacher? Because imagine in the middle of the semester, if the teacher dies, what do? You got to finish the class, right? He goes, you want to be a teacher? I said, no, it doesn't pay enough money. I'll pass. He goes, please come down here. There's no one else on my list. So just so y'all know, I got this job because no one else applied. I said, no thanks, when did he die? He goes, he died last Thursday. I said, John, it's Tuesday. I said, it's way too early to interview for a dead guy. I'm just making stuff up. That's bad karma. Sounds good, doesn't it? He goes, think about it like this, Corey. Bad for him, yeah, but good for you. And I'm like, what kind of ethics department is this? What do you mean bad for him? Like, it doesn't get much worse. That guy is dead. He goes, can you just come down here? Shut up and come down here. So you do these things for your alma mater. Let's be clear. If Casper College asks you to come back in the future to help them, you will say yes, right? That's just what you do for your alma mater. So I go down to this interview, and I'm sitting at this table surrounded in a horseshoe by ethics professors with PhDs and JDs. These people were really smart. And this one guy looks at me and goes, okay, so if you get this job, you're going to have to teach ethics. What do you know about ethics? And I wasn't trying to be glib or anything, and I just said the first thing that occurred to me, which was, I don't know anything about ethics. I went to law school. Just let the quality of that answer sink in. So students, if anyone ever asks you what you know about ethics, your first answer shouldn't be nothing, because, right? And he goes, well, I went to law school too. There's an ethics class there. Didn't you take it? Y'all ever taken an ethics class that was a total waste of your time? See, in my law school ethics class, they taught us not to have sex with our clients. Check. Don't steal their money. Don't call a guilty witness to the witness stand. Like, we left that class. I left that class the exact same person I was the day I walked into it. That is the biggest regret that any academic institution should have, is a student walks in and a student walks out and they're the same. Like, at least make me worse. My wife's medical ethics class, they taught her not to have sex with her patients. They just changed the word from clients to patients. And listen, I'm married to her, so I love that rule. But it might be late in life to teach it. Don't commit Medicare fraud. Don't cut off the wrong leg during surgery. So she brings this list home, and I'm like, honey, does that happen? Does the wrong leg get cut off? And she looks at me and she goes, all the time. Proving that these ethics classes are not working, and they never will work. Do you want to know why? We skip a step. And the only way they will work is if we first surmount this hurdle, which is this. Before it works, every one of you in this room has to believe somewhere deep in your soul that being a good person matters. Do you believe that? Because if you don't believe that, I'm wasting your time, and you are hating this. You are just here for the extra credit right now. If you don't believe somewhere in your soul that being a good person matters, then you're screwed. Because you want to know why? Your life is just going to be math. Here's how students deal with cheating. Ever dealt with cheating like this? I know I shouldn't cheat. There's an honor code here. And then you go, but everyone else is cheating. You ever use that one? I already know. Hey, everyone else is getting A's. College is expensive. I need to get good grades. My parents will be mad at me if I don't get good grades. The economy's not great. I need to get a job. Math never works in favor of the honor code. And then when you get older, it's going to go like this. I know I should tell my boss this. It's not right. I got to tell her this. And then, so, okay. Then you're going to go, but I need her to like me. And I might want to get a promotion here. I need a letter of reference. I want to move on. You know what I mean? The math will never work in your favor. The only way you make it a fair fight is if something inside of you tells you that being a good person matters. And I'm not telling you that it wins. I'm telling you on this side, though, it's at least fair. So this today is all about the heart piece. And then the ethics classes matter. But the heart piece has to come first. So I took the job, and I'm trying to figure out how to teach ethics. I'm not about to give some silly list. Follow these rules and you'll become a good person. So I go to a speaker. And my advice to you, if there is a speaker on this campus, go. Just go. I know you're busy. I know you don't want to, but just go. Because this changed everything when I came to listen to this guy. His name was John Bogle. Okay, he was a finance guy. He was a billionaire. He founded Vanguard Mutual Funds. I had seen him in the Wall Street Journal. So I'm in the front row. I'm right there. I want to hear this guy talk about jobs and the economy and stock tips, money, right? And he gets on stage, and I ask the guy next to me, like, what's he going to talk about? He's like, I have no idea. You're not going to tell that guy what to say. So he gets up on stage, and he goes, tonight, I'm going to tell you a story about a dog. I'm like, I don't want to stay for this, but if you left right now, man, it'd be really weird, so don't leave. So I have to stay, right? So this guy, I'm so glad I stayed. He goes, this is Cash the Racing Greyhound. He puts a picture up on the screen. He goes, think of the dog track where dogs run and people bet. He goes, this is the most famous one of all time. Has won tens of millions of dollars for his owner. And the night before the biggest race of this dog's life, they're on the patio talking. And she looks at the dog and she goes, hey, the race is tomorrow. We're going to win and make all this money and be famous. Are you ready? And the dog goes, I have to tell you something. I'm not going to race tomorrow. Matter of fact, I'm retiring. I quit. She's taken aback. Wait, what? The race is tomorrow, and all this money's at stake. Are you hurt? Are you mad at me? Are you too old? She has a litany of questions, right? And this dog's like, nope, it's none of those things. She goes, well, then you owe me this. Why are you quitting? Because it doesn't make sense. And the dog goes, I've been thinking about my life lately. It's the same question I asked you at the very beginning, remember? He said, ever since I was a puppy, all I ever remember doing is running and running and running around these little oval tracks. And it finally occurred to me that those little white rabbits you have us chasing every day, they're not real. And I'm like, that's cute, who cares? It's actually profound, but I didn't get it. All right, so he keeps talking. And he got me with the last words I heard him say that night. He says, you can never get enough of what you do not need to truly make you happy. Uh-oh. Pretty good, right? Then he just leaves. He literally walks up there, sets the microphone down on, so it's like, and he just leaves. And the audience is like, I guess there's no Q&A, weird. And it was the most awkward, like, disassembly of a room I've ever seen. Everyone leaves, except for me. And I stayed in that room till 11 at night for 2 more hours, and I just started crying. And I said to myself, Corey, you have more money than any of your friends. You have a better job than any of your friends. You have a more elite education than any of your friends. You have a bigger house. You have a faster car. And I kept coming back to this. So why aren't you happy? You ever ask yourself those questions? I know you have. You set a goal, huh? And you climbed a ladder, right? And it didn't work the way you thought it would, right? It didn't make you happy. It's exactly what he was trying to say that night. He's trying to say to me, it won't make you happy because he can't. All right, so it's 11 at night. And the custodians walk in. And they're like, dude, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you have to get out of here. We have to close the room and turn off the lights. So they kicked me into the quad. Crying professor. If you ever see one of those, give him a hug. And my life became very, very clear at that moment. I had an epiphany moment, which was this. The world has been lying to you, Corey, and you have believed it. And I was so ashamed of myself. Here are some lies. You ever believed this one? If I just had a little more money, I would be a happier person. Okay, well, I'm going to prove things to you like a good lawyer today. Ready? Beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you ready? I know a lot of rich people who aren't all that happy. Do you? And my richest friends are certainly not my happiest friends. It just doesn't work like that. Now, they've shown that there is an amount of money below which every dollar will make you marginally happier, but it's a lot lower than you think. $40,000, $50,000 a year, any number above that will not make you marginally happier. So yeah, if you're making 10 grand a year, money will. But that's not our dream, right? We want 200, 300, 400. How about this one, young people? Or adults too, here we go. If I was just a little prettier. I have 2 daughters. That one haunts me. I used to be a faculty mentor for a sorority, and I saw what that lie did to those young women. Let's prove stuff again. I know a lot of pretty women who aren't happy, do you? If I was more handsome, if I was skinnier, give me a break. If I was more athletic. My most athletic guy friends are the last people on earth I would go to for life advice. Dude, you're so good at basketball. What should I do with my life if I'm lonely? He's just good at basketball. Why do we idolize like he knows? How about this one, students? If my grades were better, I would be happier. I don't know about here, but at my place, there's a lot of 4.0 students walking around riddled with anxiety and on antidepressants. So your grades won't do that. In about 5 years, I would like you to go Instagram the most popular person from your high school and see how it's going now. It's not popularity, it's not respect, it's none of those things. It won't work. My very first quarter teaching, I got perfect student evaluation, 6 out of 6 on every single question from every single student. It was like 200 students. That had never happened before in the history of the university I had heard. So I went home and told my wife, I'm like, you know what? My dean's going to hear about this. My department chair is going to hear about this. And when they hear about this, I'm going to get a raise or an award, some plaque or something. Okay, guess what did happen? Nothing. To this day, it's never come up. As if it never happened. And instead of being nice to me, people started being mean to me and getting jealous of me. Ever had that happen to you? You have a significant accomplishment, and the people who should be happy for you are mean to you and jealous of you. And listen to me, if I tried to base my happiness on their respect, I'd still be miserable because I can't control it. Now, let me be clear. I find none of those things I just mentioned to be bad. They're just fake. They're not bad. Money's not bad. Money's great. Money's bad when it defines you. Do you see the difference? Being good looking's not bad. It's fine. It's bad when it defines you. Do I think your grades matter? Yes. I'm a college professor. Do I think the respect of your peers is important? Of course I do. It's bad when it defines you. Okay, so please don't leave this and on that little survey tell Heather, Corey told me to be poor, fat, and ugly. Someone always writes that. I didn't say that. I'm asking you to be happy. And those two things are only mutually exclusive if you chase one at the expense of the other. But you know as well as I do that that's not going to work. And the world is lying to you. Okay, so if that stuff is fake, what's real? And the cool thing about my job is I just get to talk to people. And we're different. Diversity is real. My oldest daughter is made of fire. Anyone like who's made of fire in this room? You're going to go far in life if you can figure it out. She was just born that way. Born screaming on fire now. My littlest is made of peace and sugar. She's so sweet. And my conversations with my kids is always like, hey guys, it's got to be both. That's the title of my next book, Fire and Sugar. That's the secret to life, right? But we're just different. But we're also the same because we're humans. And every one of us in this room and any place I've ever been wants three things. Ready? Number one, peace and contentment in your heart. That's what you should chase. Would you call yourself a peaceful and contented person? Most Americans don't. And the cool thing about having me here today is all I do is go around the country and talk to college students, so we don't have to fake it anymore. I already know. So there was a magazine that got to ask Americans every year, in the morning when you wake up, do you genuinely and consistently wake up happy? It's a good question. Not do you wake up tired, not do you have a bad day. What I like about that question is you take your worst days, you throw them out. You take your best days, throw them out, and you land on who you are at your core. Genuinely, deep in your heart, consistently over long periods of time, do you wake up happy? Okay, so every year I would sit there and wait for the results. And every year it's heartbreaking. Did you know that every year between 70 and 76% of Americans answers no? And I kept saying to myself, how is that possible in this country for that to be true? Like if you travel around the world, you can see that there are billions of people who would love to come to this country and have our bad days. And look, this country has some things it needs to atone for. I teach constitutional law, like I get it. But there are also billions of people who would love to come here and have our bad days. And both of those statements can be true at the same time. And I know like 6 people in this room, okay, so I'm going to say this to the rest of you. If you can't find a way to genuinely and consistently wake up happy here, you are chasing something fake. And I would stop because it's not going to work. I promise. You're not the one. Please don't exempt yourself. You're not the one person whose money is going to make you happy. You're not the one person whose looks are going to make you happy. You're not the one person whose grades are going to... It just doesn't work like that. This is just true for all of us. So can you find some peace? Wouldn't that be nice? So I had to figure out, if I'm going to talk about this, like how come Americans are so discontented? And I figured this out. My wife and I went on a baby moon. Do you know what a baby moon is? It's when you're about to have your first kid and you know you'll never go anywhere fun ever again. You ruined it for your parents, right? So we went to Paris and she's real pregnant and we're waddling around. She's like, we have to go to art museums. I said, I don't want to go to art museums. I don't like art. She's like, we're going to art museums. So you don't argue with a pregnant lady, right? I'm like, yes. Anyone been to an art museum in Paris in this room? Okay, remember the rules. You can't eat, you can't drink, you can't talk, you can't, if you even take your phone out like this, they will come and yell at you, right? It's brutal. So I'm looking around and I get to this painting. And it is, I don't know, half as big as this screen. It is literally the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. Ugly. It looked like some guy got drunk, put on a blindfold, took an ice cream scoop, just started throwing colors till he sobered up and he just left. It's ugly, okay? But this is Paris, and you're not allowed to say that. So everyone's gathered around this art piece going, it's so stunning, it's beautiful, it moves me. And I looked at my wife, I'm like, that's ugly. And she's like, I know it is, shut up. So she's not listening. So I look at this guy next to me, he's packed in there. And I don't know this guy, I'm like, hey man, I think that's ugly. And he goes, Monsieur, tu parles français, he's French. I'm like, yes, I can use my French from my 1 year of French in 8th grade. Tell me if you went to a middle school like I did, okay? My French teacher's name was Mr. Ruiz. He taught French, Spanish, and home ec. Anyone go to a middle school like I did? Okay, so my French sucks, obviously, Mr. Ruiz. So I look at this guy and I start to talk in French, and he's like, I don't understand. So now he calls his friends over. In the museum where you're not even supposed to talk, I have formed a huddle. So my wife's like, great, the guard sees you. And so this guard walks over, this huge museum walks over, boom, boots on concrete floor. She's like, he's gonna yell at you when he gets over here. When that man gets over here, you just lie to him, you tell him you like it, and we'll leave. I'm an ethics professor, right? He comes over to me, and in broken English, the guard says, excuse me, sir, I see you're laughing at that painting. Do you like it? And I'm not gonna lie to him, right? She's kicking me like, lie, lie, lie. And I said, no, sir, I don't like it. I think it's ugly. It's giving me a headache every time I look at it. And if I'm being honest, I think it sucks. So she kicks me right in the kneecap, and he goes, I'm sorry, sir, my English is bad. Did you just say that painting sucks? No one's ever said that to me before. And she's like, I wonder why. I'm married to an idiot. She's so mad right now. He goes, but since you said that, I'm gonna let you in a little secret. He goes, that's the artist's intention. It's supposed to suck, as you say. Now get this, the artist is trying to depict the barrenness of an overly busy life. Uh-oh! I look at my wife, I'm like, that's my life, let's go! Let's just go! So I went home and looked it up. It's a quote by Socrates, the most famous philosopher of all time. Beware the barrenness of an overly busy life. And that, my friends, is so good. Is that your life? Have you ever been really busy in your life and at the same time super lonely? And you're like, I'm a smart person, guess I'm not doing enough stuff. You go do more stuff, and by doing more stuff, the flywheel of your unhappiness just spins faster and faster. Here's my advice to you, as a college professor who deeply cares about you. Just pick 2 or 3 things you love here and quit everything else. Just do a few things and enjoy your life. Don't wear your badge of busyness like an honor. It's a shameful thing. Just pick 2 things. Because really, college is a balance of work and academics and social and involvement, right? It's a balance, and if your balance is off, you're gonna be miserable. So I went to Pennsylvania, and this kid raised his hand in the middle of my speech. No one usually does that, but it's not putting it down, so I'm just gonna call him. I'm like, yeah, man, what? He goes, you're wrong. He goes, I'm the president of 7 organizations on this campus, and if I was to quit any of them, the organization would die. And in my head, I'm thinking, dang, man, those sound terrible. I didn't want to say that, so I'm like, give me an example. And he literally says to me, I'm the president of the chess club. And if I quit the chess club, it will die. And I'm like, great. How many people are in that chess club? He says to me and this other guy. And I said, dude, you have a chess friendship. That is not a club. You should go to Starbucks and play chess. And listen, students, if any organization that you're in dies because you're no longer there, it's not strong enough. The idea is to make it strong so that when you leave, it thrives. I don't care if it's a sports team or whatever, right? So what could you stop? How could you slow down? And I know you see your parents and all the adults in this room running like chickens with their heads cut off. That's not right. You don't have to do that. Number 2, everyone wants this too. A small group of really good friends. Notice I didn't say a big group of crappy ones. And the fact that I have to differentiate those 2 statements says something about our society. So we want peace. We want a small group of really good friends. So let me define it for you. Do you have at least 3 people who would rush into your life when everyone else rushes out? Because if not, man, I would chase that over the next workout, over the next A, over studying for the next quiz. You know, I read these books, and sometimes it's about how people who live the longest on earth. And the people who live the longest on earth, they have a bunch of things they do in common, but one of them is they have a small group of really good friends. It's never more than like 3, 5, 7 people. And COVID showed us though, didn't it? Like who would be there for us and who wouldn't. And I want you to be really careful of that, because in your worst moments, a lot of people will disappear. When things have been going great in my life, I've had so many people around me. And when things went bad, people I thought were my friends scattered to the winds. So find some. Here's a hypothetical. If you were getting married tomorrow, do you have at least 3 people you'd be so proud to have stand next to you at your wedding? And if not, man, find that. No one has 20 bridesmaids. That's ridiculous. The network is huge. I really liked that talk. I thought that was really valuable. That's important. That's separate from this. You need to have both. Does that make sense? Please don't be surrounded by people and friendless. And in a world of billions of people, you could find 3. I have very few criteria for a friend of mine. I have to like you. You have to like me. You have to be trying to be a good person. I don't know, those like 3 things. Other than that, I couldn't care less. If you're unemployed, I couldn't care less other than those 3 things. Okay, third thing everyone wants is to be good. That's a full life if you could just have those 3 things. If you could find some peace, and you could have a couple good friends, and you could be a good person, and then if you were also rich, congratulations, you were also good looking, great, I don't care. But like those 3 things have to matter first. What do I mean by being good? Every one of you in this room was born with a conscience. There's nothing you can do about it, you're just born. You're also born with a mute button. And you wouldn't want it any other way, because without that mute button, you're just a robot. But the mute button allows you to turn your conscience off whenever you want. And here's how you prove that's true. Remember when you were little and you told your first lie and it was hard to tell that lie? Is it easier now? Do you remember the first time you were mean to somebody and it was really hard to be mean to them, and now it's easier because you've done it so many times? It's like what Aristotle says, you're the sum total of your habitual actions. And I would add something to that, and of the people you hang around the most, you're like them too. When you hang around people who lie, you'll lie. That's how bad companies become worse. Not everyone at Theranos was a liar, right? But enough people were that when you hang around them enough, you start lying too. My kids taught me everything I need to know about this. My daughter Sophie is 10, and my kids are precious gifts from God. Don't get me wrong, but Sophie's just learning how to lie. Anyone have a 10-year-old in their life? Okay, when a 10-year-old lies, it's hilarious because her whole body moves. The experience is worth paying money to see. So in her head, lie, Sophie. And her heart says, don't lie, Sophie, it's wrong. And so she can't reconcile those 2 things. And so she just moves. And I look at her every single time. I'm like, Sophie, are you lying to me? And every single time she just goes, yeah. That's how when you're lying, you're supposed to keep lying. Don't tell Dad you're lying. Anyway, she can't even get in trouble because it's so obvious. But when I lie, sometimes you can't even tell. Some of you in this room are expert liars. That is not a compliment. We've just got so good at it because that's all we do. You know what I realized? I want a conscience like a 10-year-old again. That's all I want. I don't want my daughter's brain. I don't want her emotions. I want my daughter's conscience, because if I had my daughter's conscience, my life would be so easy. Hey, Corey, should you lie? Why would you do that? Hey, Corey, should you step on people's heads to get to the top? Who would do that, Daddy? That convicts me. Hey, should I make it, the exception for myself that I'm not willing to grant to others? Listen, I'm not a very good person. And if you knew who I was before I had this job, you would be ashamed of me. At my base personality, I'm arrogant and mean. I'm not a good person. The only reason I might be different from you is because of the guardrails I have in my life, because of my job, and because of the person I want to be. And do you know what those guardrails are for me? It's my daughter's faces. I mean, Heath couldn't have set this up any better for me. Starts off with 2 pictures of his family. I didn't know you were going to do that. That's freaking awesome. The only definition of integrity you'll ever need is you are the same on the inside as the out. That's all it means. And if you're faking it, you will never be content. You will never flourish. Your life will never go the way you want. And my daughters know who I am. And if they saw me acting like that, they would be confused. And that convicts me. Okay, so it's audience participation time. Ready? Close your eyes. Who is that for you? Seriously, who is that for you in your life? You got to have somebody or something. It's got to be a person or something like faith, philosophy. I don't know. Because you want to know why? We live in a transactional world. In a transactional world where I'll only do it if it helps me. If you don't have someone to keep you honest, you're going to follow the sheep right off the cliff. I promise. I go to all these conferences and they go, hey, Corey, you're going to love our theme today. It's called Ethics, the Ultimate Business Advantage. And I hate that. Because what if it isn't? What if you decide to run an ethical company and you see that the people who cheat get ahead of you? And in this world today, in the short term, they will. And the long-term ethical businesses always win. And there's so much data to back that up. But in the short term, the ethical people don't win. So guess what? If you're good and you don't make money and that's your reason for being good, you've just lost your reason for being good. Have you ever said this one? I'm going to be nice to people this week in hopes they're nice to me. And they're not nice to you. And now you're mean, huh? because you just lost your incentive to be good. If you're going to be a good person, I would like you to have one only reason to do it. Ready? Because it's the right thing to do. I'm going to be honest today, not so people like me, not so I get stuff from people, because it's the right thing to do, because I know it's right. I'm going to be kind today. I'm going to be compassionate today. I'm going to be courageous today. Not for any other reason than it's the right thing to do, because that will never let you down. All those other things will let you down because you might not get what you want. But if you're not a good person, you'll never flourish. Aristotle, again, famous philosopher, said the point of a human is to flourish. That's the whole point of a human being. This was 3,000 years ago. Just like a knife is meant to cut well, imagine a dull knife. It's not fulfilling its purpose. It's sad, right? If a human being doesn't flourish, they're not fulfilling their purpose. Now get this. He said the only way a person will ever flourish is if they are good. Let that sink in. If you are not a good person, you will never flourish the way you want. And of course that's true. Everyone in this room right now, think about the person in your life who lies the most. Are they flourishing? Think about the people in your life who cheat. Are cheaters flourishing? No. Do school bullies flourish? No. That's why they're bullies. Mean people don't flourish. Liars don't flourish. If you want to flourish, you need to be good. Be a good person. And if stuff comes from that, cool. That's just not why you're doing it. I want to encourage you to really look strongly at your character. Okay, if you're with me to this point, what I'm about to say to you next is going to be the most important thing you hear all year, maybe ever. Ready? Promise me you will never put your job ahead of your family. Don't ever do that. And I've stood on a stage in front of 1 million people at least over 20 years. I've met 1 million people. I have never met one person who puts his or her job first who is truly content and happy. Now, I've met a ton who are rich. And I've met a ton who are famous. This is the American dream, right? You can totally do that. But they're never happy. And they come up to me at my rental car. You know, they don't want the boss usually. So they don't want to say this in front of their employees. And they look at me like, I'm miserable. I work 80 hours a week, Corey, and I'm blowing up my marriage. I'm about to become a full-blown alcoholic. My kids don't talk to me, okay? I'm totally miserable. I can't sleep at night. I'm depressed. I'm enraged. Can you help me? Let's be honest. If someone comes up to a complete stranger and says that, they're desperate. So what am I going to say back? That's a critical moment, right? So I went home and thought about it. The next time someone says that to me, hey, what am I going to say? And the only answer I could come up with is, hey man, you got to fix your priorities in your heart with your priorities in your life. What do you want deeply in your heart? And they always say family. What's your life showing? Your life is showing work. In my life, I've got like 6 priorities, okay? I'm a religious guy. I love my wife. I love my kids. I really like my job. I like to exercise. I like to travel. I pretty much suck at everything else. You should see me golf. I'll sit there and I'll hit a golf ball in a lake 8 times in a row. And so my daughters, they think they're funny. They'll go get golf balls for me and go, Daddy, here's more balls for the lake. They think I do it on purpose like it's a carnival act. Like, I'm an athletic person. I don't want to hit a golf ball into a lake, but I don't have time. And if I tried to prioritize that and the 20 other things on my plate, you know what? I'm going to suck at everything. I'm good at like 6 things. Well, Corey, your job is 4th. How can you do that? Do you like, listen, I love my job. Can you tell? Just not more than them. And that's why those slides were so beautiful. Like, so, young people, you're not married yet, you don't have kids yet, do you want that? And if it's something you want, I would like you to plan that in your head now. At some point in my future, I would like to have a family. Therefore, there are certain jobs I can't take. Let me be honest with you, okay? I will never teach at Harvard. I'd like to. They're not going to hire me, someone that says that. I'm already done. I'll never be professor of the year because they're never going to give me that award, because if I have I coach my daughter's soccer teams. If I have a soccer practice at the same time as a faculty meeting, I go to soccer practice. And they hate me at my job. They hate me so much that it's cost me awards and raises and promotions. It'd be impossible to quantify how much they don't like me. Guess what? I'm the happiest married man at the whole school. I'm the best father at the University of Denver, and I would bet my life on it. Seriously, if someone came up to me and said, you have to bet your life on that, I would bet my life on that. So listen to me. In life, you choose. Never forget that. You always get to choose. And your job probably won't care about your marriage. They should. but they probably won't. And your job probably won't care about what kind of parent you are, or if you're exercising at all, or how you're sleeping. They won't care. And if you want to protect that stuff, you have to protect it. I still work really hard, but a lot of times it's put the kids to bed and stay up till 2 and work, right? Just something I want to plant those seeds in your mind right now, okay? I want each of you in this room to go make a dent in the universe, just not at the expense of them. And it's not just me saying it. You saw it before me. I did not know that was going to happen. Okay, last couple points. Raise your hand if this is not what you were expecting to hear today. It's a huge compliment for me. Thank you. There's people crying out there. You know what people want from me? Hey, Corey, can you give me a book that in the middle of the book has a poster that I can take out and put on my mirror? And I promise you, between now and Thanksgiving, I'll give you 20 minutes a day. Can you tell me how in 20 minutes a day to be a good, happy person? Like, people ask me that all the time. You want a life hack to happiness, right? Because you can go on TikTok and life hack everything. But it's not like that. Like, there are no shortcuts to any place worth going. Have you heard that? It's not like that. Like, you could go to Barnes & Noble and buy a bunch of books. How about this book? How to Lose 30 Pounds in 3 Weeks. Okay, that book exists, and you're going to get sick. How about this one? I want to bench press 200 pounds in a month. Okay, cool. Start at like 150 and know how to lift weights. Or you're going to get hurt. Go to Barnes & Noble, okay, and buy a book. Go buy a book there on happiness. And it will sit on your shelf, and it will collect dust. Do you want to know why? There's a quote I want you never to forget. The point of life is not to be happy, but to be worthy of happiness. And that's different. And those books can't teach you that necessarily. They'll teach you how to be happy, but that doesn't work. Because there's a concept called hedonistic adaptation. Human beings adapt to the good things they have, and it's not as good anymore. Like, you ever got a new car or a new outfit, and it's cool for like a week? You ever got good grades, and it's fun for a couple weeks, and you're sad again? You date someone new, and it's fun, now you're sad again? It's not their fault. You're sad again for different reasons, right? You got to earn it. Anyone know the name Tony Horton? He's a famous workout guru. Workout guys are weird, right? But this guy's kind of fun. And he gave an interview. And he goes, every single day I get asked, hey, Tony, how do I get ripped quickly? Can you imagine making a workout? Every day, ripped quickly as possible. He goes, I'm so tired of that every time someone asks me that, I just have a set of DVDs I carry with me. I hand them a set of workout DVDs and I say, okay, you want to get fit? Every day, just take a different one of these, put it in, and work out. I'm like, that's actually brilliant. If every one of us in this room did that, every one of us in the room would get fit. Some faster than others, right? But it would work for all of us. He's like, just push play, just push play, just push play. I'm going to steal one other thing from him. He goes, I tell them to do their best and forget the rest. Okay, ready for the answer to your by Thanksgiving question? Would you like at some point in your life to be a happier, better person? Then get up tomorrow and do your best. And you're going to screw it up because you're a human being. So then get up on Friday and do the same thing. And get up on Saturday and do the same thing. If you want to lose 30 pounds, you're going to have good days and bad days. And if you stop, it won't work. If you want to get fit, you're going to have good days and bad days. Why would this be any different? Like, why would happiness be any different from that? I want to encourage each of you, just get up tomorrow and be a little bit better person than you were today. And I wish I could give you a better answer after doing this for so long. Like, there's not a better answer. It's just hard. And I would like you to be stubborn enough to do that. Okay, I'm going to conclude with this. You all should be thinking about legacy. Everyone in this room should be thinking about legacy. I think about my legacy all the time. It's never, though, what's going to be written on my tombstone when I die. I never think about that. You know what I think about every single day, though? If I were to look back 5 years from now, will my life have meant something? Is that what you think about? I want my life to have meant something. Like, if I'm going to get on an airplane and fly up here and do this, I want it to have meant something. Okay, so there's this poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson that talks directly about this, and it's called Success. And I want to encourage every one of you in this room to go print that out and just keep it on your nightstand. Professors, print it out for every single person in your class. Okay? Employees, every single person that works for you should have a copy of this poem. Again, if Ralph Waldo Emerson talks about what makes a person successful, probably right. If he tells you how to bake a pie, you can ignore him. I have no idea if he knows how to bake. But he knows about this. And in that poem is no mention of money. Well, to be successful, you must be rich. In that poem is no mention of being good looking. Not in there. To be successful, you must be handsome or pretty. Nope. In that poem is no mention of popularity. It's not in there. It's contentment, it's relationships, it's character. Anyway, dead in the middle of that poem is a line. Okay? And I got my master's in divinity degree, and what they taught us is when you have an important piece of literature like that, like it's a Bible verse or it's a poem, what's directly in the middle is the most important thing. It's not an accident. They call it a chiasm, okay? So everything leads to that, and then everything descends from that. So in the very middle of his poem, he talks about legacy. That's not on accident. And here's what it says, and I want you to note the grammar of this, okay? You make a difference, meaning you make a legacy, by a healthy child, comma, a garden patch, comma, or a redeemed social condition, period. Okay, so go back to 4th grade for a second. I'm your 4th grade teacher. I give you a sentence. At the end of that sentence are a bunch of phrases separated by commas. And after that last comma, I insert the word or. Does anyone remember what all those things on the list are? Let me make it easier. Do you want to play tennis, comma, basketball, comma, or soccer? If your mom asks you that, what is everything on the list to her? It's the same. It's the same. It's the rule of equivalency. And as soon as I figured it out, I said, see, my whole life, all people have ever said to me implicitly or explicitly is this. Hey, Corey, if you're not the captain of the basketball team, okay? If you don't date the prettiest girl in school, if you don't blah, 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 if you don't go to the best college, if you don't go to the hardest major, if you don't go to the best law school, if you don't get the best job, if you don't have the biggest house, you're a loser. That's what the world tells us, right? If you're not the best at everything, you're a loser. That is not true. And I said to myself, you know what? I don't have to cure cancer all by myself. I just need to be a good dad. And those things are equal because the grammar of the poem tells you that's true. And every single one of you, when I was reading that, was like, yeah, it's the same. We need someone to cure cancer. We also need tons of good dads. Do you agree? I mean, people want their dad. And when I have a student in my office, I'll talk to that kid for 10 minutes and he'll go, that's more than my dad talked to me for the last 5 years. I'm not his dad. I'm his law professor. What are we doing? Where's your dad? At work. Where's your mom? At work. What I've learned about teaching at a rich school is just because those kids have money doesn't mean they have good parents. It's not like that. If you have good parents, do me a favor. When you leave this today, tell them you love them. Send them a text. Just say, I love you. That's a huge thing. You got a good dad? I love you. Thank you. Okay, so that matters. But someone else wants to cure cancer. That would be a redeemed social condition. But most of the people in this room are students. So let me say this to you. If you don't have kids, and no one in this room today is curing cancer, myself included, right? What is left on that list? You have a garden patch. This beautiful campus in this really cool city. As community colleges go, this is about the nicest one I've ever seen. Like, I speak at a lot of them, and the room never looks like this. It's like a lunchroom that leaks from the roof, believe me. It never looks like this. This is a precious garden patch. And you have a very short time here. I think your energy should be spent now, not on figuring out how to cure cancer, but how to plug into this community. Because it's worth the same. And don't let the world lie to you. This talk has been all about lies, right? The lies the world tells, and we believe them. Stop believing them. You're smarter than that. But since I started with this with tombstones, let me end this whole thing with tombstones. And by the way, get a hold of me, please. Like, go on Instagram and just tell me, hey, Corey, I like this, or I hated this, whatever. Like, it's sad for me to fly all up here. I never see you again, so find me. Just get pictures on there. On no one's tombstone does it ever read, here lies John Doe, he was rich. Find me one. Here lies Jane Doe, she was really pretty. Like, back in her 20s, you should see her now. I mean, she's dead. She's ugly. You know what it says on every single person's tombstone? Go to any cemetery. Here lies John Doe, loving father. Here lies Jane Doe, loving spouse. Here lies John Doe, member of a community, beloved by the... That's what it says. And if it's going to say that on your tombstone when you die, shouldn't it be the most important thing to you right now? And I want you to really rethink what the word character means to you, how you look at your life, what's your wall, okay? Go make a dent in the universe, but don't do it at the expense of the most important things in every person's life, okay? Okay, you all were awesome. God bless you. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Have a good life.
All right, right, thank you so much for coming today. Please take some time, go get some lunch, and join us again in the University Union for our living room conversations at 1 o'clock. We'll see you all there.
There you go.